Good morning. I will now call the meeting to order for the purpose of electing a chair and vice chair. I will ask that someone move a nomination for chair, please. Councillor Schell.
Thank you. I'd like to move Peter Stroud, Councillor Stroud.
Councillor Stroud, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
And would someone like to second that, please? Mr. Taylor. And are there any other nominations for the position of chair at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the nomination period for the position of chair, and I'll ask the committee to vote on the appointment of Councillor Stroud as chair. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And I'll now ask for nominations for the position of vice chair. I'll go with Mr. Gervin. And Don, would you accept that position? And may I have a seconder? I see Megan. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Seeing none, I'll close the nominations and ask the committee to vote on the appointment of Mr. Taylor as vice chair. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Stroud.
Made sure I brought my water with me because I'm fighting a cold and they say you should always hydrate. Next item on the agenda is the agenda approval of the agenda. So there is an addendum to the agenda that should be on your desk. The addition of a third briefing from Mr. Canellis, the Director of Facilities, and an item of business, heritage permit. There was an exhibit error. The exhibit of that, it's not a different item, it's the exhibit that's been swapped out for the proper exhibit. We'll get more details on the change when we get to that item. So I need a mover and a seconder for the addendum or for the whole agenda? For the agenda with the addendum. Moved by Mac, seconded by Councillor Schell. Any discussion? Okay, all those, yes, Don?
Is this the approval of the agenda?
Yes.
Could I ask for an item under other business, a brief discussion of the outer station?
Okay, so Don would like to add other business. Looking around the table, is everyone okay with that? We don't need to vote if everyone's, I'm seeing nodding, so we'll add that to the agenda. So with that and the two items in the addendum added, all those in favor? And that carries. Mr. Clerk, do we have quorum? So we need 6. Yeah, there's 11 members on the committee, so yeah, great turnout today. I did receive regrets, and James, I believe, receives regrets as well for 3 members, which means 3 of the 5 that are not here have told us they weren't going to be here, which means 2 could still show up. Anyway, good point. If someone has to leave the room, we'll have to take a recess. Okay, so confirmation of minutes from November 2nd. I need a mover and a seconder to get them on the floor. Moved by Don, seconded by Mac. Any errors or omissions to these minutes? Seeing none, we'll vote on them as they appear. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Yes, Mac. So you could just hit your mic, please.
A pecuniary interest for the 92 Sydenham Street. I'm the agent for the clients. I filled out this form in the right form.
So unless someone else shows up, we won't be able to vote on that item, right?
No, that's not.
Oh, sorry. The quorum goes down by 1 with pecuniary interest. You're removed from the quorum number, so then the quorum is only 5, apparently, even though it's 10. Quorum goes down by 1. Okay. Okay, ignore my last statement. Rules of procedure take into account pecuniary interest and don't count it in quorum. So now we've got presentations. There are no presentations or delegations, but we do have 3 briefings from staff. First up is the City Clerk, Mr. Bolognon. He will speak regarding Part 5 process.
So we're pleased to be here this morning just to follow up on Greg's presentation dealing with Part 5. It will be a very brief briefing, and all the slides that you see on both screens will be provided to all the committee members at the end of the meeting. So we're going to use an actual report that's being considered this morning as our exhibit. So I just ask you to watch the screens, and you don't have to follow your agenda itself. So in a nutshell, we've basically broken down the Part 5 process as such. So staff determines if the application is sufficient. If so, we have the notice of receipt, which is issued. We have the dash technical circulation to Heritage Kingston for 5 days, and that's the commenting period. The technical circulation results are prepared with a recommendation for presentation to Heritage Kingston. Heritage Kingston is asked to confirm the pre-consultation findings to support council approval of the application. And then the report recommendation goes to council to approve with conditions to approve or reject the application. That's done within 90 days of the notice of receipt. And that's very, very quick with respect to the Part 5 process. So let's take a look at the initial comments from Heritage Kingston. So in this report, which you have in your agenda, there were a number of comments provided by individual members. There's an email from S. Hill, HK member, October 31st, which says, Ryan, I did not approve of much of this work when it was presented to the committee earlier, nor do I recommend approval now. Also, I did not see a heritage impact study on this half of a double house, which mirrors the dwellings on the opposite side of the street. Given that, I do not recommend approval of these new dormers nor roof rack deck area visible to the street. Sherman. So prior to the Heritage Kingston meeting, the input is received in the 5-day window. It is included in the staff report as submitted, and it is an exhibit attached to the staff report. Staff does not alter the comments, but does consolidate them for ease of reference. During the Heritage Kingston meeting, there is an opportunity to provide final comments. And we've just put this in here for illustration purposes. The final comments were provided at the December 7th Heritage Kingston meeting. For instance, the applicant consider using a wood window in their new addition in place of the metal clad window. The applicant consider using a lighter color in their window that surrounds in order to showcase the window details, et cetera, et cetera. So at the meeting, the Heritage Kingston chair asked the committee if their comments have been captured accurately and whether there are any final comments. Members of the public are also asked for comments. So all these comments are then summarized and attached as an exhibit to a report to council. So an example of the staff recommendation to Heritage Kingston basically would read that Heritage Kingston supports council approval of the following, and you would see the staff recommendation that comes forward, which is included in your agenda and as part of the staff report. So then comes the report to council. So this is the report coming from really James to me that we include in the agenda. And so it's basically broken down into 3 areas. The first one deals with applications recommended for approval. Those are the statutory consultations that are done with Heritage Kingston. The Part 4 application, the notice of intention to designate. There is no change in this process with respect to the Part 4. Part 5, in the second recommendation, deals with applications supported for approval by council. Applications supported for approval by Heritage Kingston. These are the non-statutory consultations. These are applications that Heritage Kingston can support. Then the third section of the council report would look for applications not supported for approval by Heritage Kingston. So once the committee considers the staff report, if there are areas that this committee cannot support, and the vote is taken, we will then include these recommendations in this section. So the report from this committee to council will be similar to what we have in other agenda areas. The CAO recommend, the CEO consent, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an example, as we said, application supported for approval by Heritage Kingston. This is the non-statutory consultation, and you see the recommendation in front of you. 3, as I said before, will be applications not supported for approval by Heritage Kingston. So these are the applications that this committee cannot support. And an exhibit that's going to be attached to the report from committee to council will include the staff report with the final comments which are being received by the committee, and this forms the last exhibit. You'll see that the report itself will have an Exhibit D, those are the consolidated comments from Heritage Kingston members, and then Exhibit E, which will be the final comments from Heritage Kingston. Now this is important because the process allows for appeals to the Internal Municipal Board, and it's critical that council has all the information going forward, so that is why we're replicating the report with both sets of comments from the committee. An example of final comments received from Heritage Kingston members, and this is only for illustration purposes only, as I mentioned before. It puts those conditions on there that the committee can support. And that's the end of our presentation. So just in a nutshell, so everybody understands, the streamlined process is to allow the committee ample opportunity to provide their comments. It's critical that during that 5-day window that those comments are provided either through Dash or by email, verbal, I guess, until we actually do the Dash training later on this week. But it allows the committee 2 kicks at the can, so to speak, to be able to provide their comments on whether or not they can support an application through the consultative process put forward by staff. So this process is in keeping with the council approval of a couple of reports that went through earlier this year, and we're hopeful that this streamlined process will allow the committee the opportunity to provide those comments to staff. So can answer any questions if the committee has some.
Go ahead, Councillor Schell.
Thank you. You may not be able to answer this one, but it's to do with sufficient information. That was the very beginning of the process. You mentioned sufficient information has been collated. Does that then become the date of the notice of receipt? And that's the beginning of the 5 days?
Yes, but I'm going to turn it over to Greg just to bring some additional commentary on that.
Mr. Newman. Mr. Leary.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I think the question is, at what point does the clock start ticking on the basis of having received sufficient information with an application? Okay. So there is a bit of a judgment call. There are certain things that the planners on the file expect to receive that would provide enough clarification of what's being sought with the application. And like I say, if there's enough information in the application package to be able to process the application and to be able to review it critically against, say in the context of a Part 5, the Heritage Conservation District Plan, then it's sort of deemed complete and processed through DASH, and that's the point at which applicant or members of the committee would get notice through DASH. If it's incomplete, the work of staff is to advise the applicant that there are other things that are missing, like for instance, the design detail that we then report back to the applicant to ensure we get it. And it's not until sufficient information being enough to review the application is received that we circulate to members.
I have a related question related to timelines. So the clock starts ticking at that point. There's a 5-day window where we can give comments directly to staff, and then there's the meeting where we have another opportunity to give input. But the decision point is when council gets it and the night that council votes on it. So could you theoretically continue to give input to staff prior to the report going to council, but after the heritage meeting?
As I said, ideally that 5-day window is the time to provide those comments because staff can actually review the comments and incorporate them into the report with the decision. without speaking for Greg, I'm assuming we'll always take information that will allow council to make informed decisions. But the reality is, without providing staff that sufficient time, you won't get the analysis that is important with the decision going forward.
Right, so encouraged to use that 5-day window and to keep in mind the legal point about it being appealable to the OMB, and so any information that needs to be in the file needs to be disclosed in a timely manner so that it can be considered, the context can be considered.
Yeah, I'll just add another point that I think is important. The initial comments that are provided, which form part of the report, when we come back for the final comments, I don't think we're looking at revisiting those initial comments. Final comments should really be new information. And in order to streamline the process and make sure the meetings don't last more than 4 or 5 hours, it's important that we ensure that we're not just reduplicating the effort. So I want to say this again, that 5-day window is critical.
And the context of those comments should be in light of what reasons might you have for supporting the council's approval or not, like in that lens, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Not to be cynical, I don't like this application isn't really a comment. There has to be some really land use issues with respect to what you want council to understand. And
Presumably specific language from the Part 5 designation bylaw that would indicate that a heritage attribute is being looked after, or perhaps not, if that was a reason for not wanting to support approval.
That's correct.
So using the Part 5 language and answering the question of whether it is possible to support or not as a heritage member. Yes, Sherman.
So am I to understand then, when after the 5-day period and the application comes to committee for discussion or whatever the process is called, further comments can be made by members that will be included in that second part, final comments, so that if there is clarity required, clarity can be achieved. This brings to question, though, or there's no discussion, there's no assurance of a discussion, and I'm curious, at what point does there become a discussion? If there is to be a discussion about matters, there's a lot of comments, but it seems the meeting time is the time that discussion happens, and I'm just cautious that whether there's going to be a lot of discussion about rather than just statements, and I'm curious how we encourage discussion about statements.
So to answer that question, the opportunity is there to provide final comments. The chair will ask whether there are any additional or final comments to the application. So at that point, there is that opportunity for discussion, but it isn't the opportunity to restart the discussion on the application because those initial comments are already there and have been addressed by staff. So at the end of the day, the committee is going to vote on whether or not Heritage Kingston can support council approval of the application. If the committee cannot do that, as I indicated before, that recommendation will be slotted in a new part of the committee report to council. So council then will have that recommendation and will also have the comments from the committee, both initial and final, so that they can then make an informed decision. At that point, council can amend the recommendation if they're so inclined. They can refer it back to staff. They can defer it. So council has a number of options available to that. But the consultative process really with Heritage Kingston is to get that information to council so that they can make that informed decision.
I'll go to you in a second, Mr. Newman. I just want to say that as chair, the way I see the discussion is the discussion cannot result in any comments being removed unless you want to, unless in the final comments you want to withdraw something that you had submitted. You can do that personally. In other words, the only person that can affect the comments that are given to staff is the member themselves and not the will of the committee. So you can say anything you like on the file, whether written in advance or during the final comment submission, which is oral, but is taken down in the minutes. But the discussion can't result in saying, well, such and such is wrong about that item and therefore it should be removed. Like, that's not one of the things that can be discussed, because that's not how the process works. It's like all comments are included, and it's up to council to take all of that information into account when they make their decision, right? So the discussion is just a way of getting to how that input gets into the minutes, not so much whether things could be removed from the file. Did you want to say something, Mr. Newman, and then?
So through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just add, I guess. So the 5-day window through Dash will receive comments, and the report that you receive at a meeting where staff are presenting a recommendation, let's say in a Part 5 context, our reports will include how the comments were considered. So hopefully that allows for some clarification prior to a longer discussion about, well, I said this, and I'm not too sure how it's been addressed in formulating the recommendation that we now are here to vote on, whether or not we pass a motion to present that to council. So our staff reports will be, I think, more detailed as they relate to responding to the comments of the committee, but also staff will be here in the room when you are bringing up new comments, new technical comments, or new things that you're seeking clarification on. So I expect that staff will be available to provide you with a response to things that may just creep up as a matter of discourse.
Any other questions? Yeah, Sherman.
So just to complete, then in this category of if committee doesn't approve application, this suggests then that in the application there will be a vote as to whether the committee in a whole approves or disapproves, and that determines then what category it goes in as a committee as a whole approves or disapproves after that supposed discussion and conversation.
Mr. Clerk,
that's correct. If you take a look at the report that's before you for today, there was a recommendation that says that, you know, the committee can support council approval of the following application. So there is a vote that's taken on that. If for some reason the committee chooses to vote that down, that recommendation from staff will still go to council, but it'll be recategorized and identified that that wasn't an application that Heritage Kingston can support. So with all that additional information that Greg has talked about and that we've tried to illustrate, council then will have the information to make the informed decision.
And to tie that to the legal framework is if there were an appeal on that file, on the council decision, one way or the other, if someone appealed its approval, someone appealed its denial, the category is important for the OMB, right? It clearly states what the comments were and that Heritage Kingston as a whole did not support approval, right? So that is an important category, and that is exactly how we need to look at it when we have our discussion and vote, is whether or not as a committee we support its approval or not. That difference in category is not technical, it's very important. And also, that should be the context of our discussion, is whether it's a yes or no question. Do we support approval or do we not support approval? Mac?
I have two questions. The first question is, so the comments of the committee are passed on at this stage when it comes to our committee. After the 5-day period, we have our meeting like today. People make comments on it, whether yay or nay. Are the comments of the agent or the owners or the public also included in the comments that go through to council? That's one question.
Okay, so these are comments from the Heritage Kingston, so it's individual members of Heritage Kingston. There also are minutes that are provided which summarize the discussion. So it's our hope that the minutes, as well as the committee report, will be in the council hands so they can see the total picture.
The second question is, so a Part 5's come in and the staff have either approved it or disapproved it. And then it comes to our committee and we either agree with the staff or don't agree with the staff. Regardless of how we of how whether we agree or disagree with the staff, it still goes through as the staff the recommendation of the staff has declined it, but along with our comments, it might influence the councillors. Is that basically it?
That's correct. As I indicated before, there'll be 3 categories within the Heritage Kingston report to council. It will be the statutory approvals, the applications that this committee can support council approving, and then if there are applications that this committee cannot support, it'll be recategorized into the 3rd block. Yes.
I'm going to ask this. It might seem like a redundant question, but in the case using this, say the committee voted not unanimously, say it was a split vote, but it was in favor of supporting, and the minority on Heritage that was not in favor had made comments in both forms. What happens to those comments if we as a committee vote as a majority to support approval? What happens to the comments from the minority that did not support approval?
So the individual comments from the committee members will go to council in that appendix. For instance, for this one here would be Appendix E, those final comments. At the end of the day, it's the committee vote, not necessarily the minority position, because the minority position is going to be picked up in 2 ways. Number 1, in the council minutes, and then number 2, also in the appendix to the report that goes to council for approval.
Don.
I think there's been a lot of work over the last months in preparing these new procedures, and there's a learning curve for us and maybe a learning curve for staff, and hopeful that it all works out. What interests me is, in particular, is that at the same time of the last year, we've gathered a lot of information from other municipalities about their procedures, and this procedure is, I think, different from any other municipality. Am I right in that observation?
There has been considerable research that has been done, but I like to think of Kingston being leaders, not followers. This process, I believe, is going to work. And if we find down the road that it doesn't meet everybody's intentions, we'll relook at it. I mean, for this process to work, we have to remember we're in partnership here. Without everybody rowing in the same direction, we're not going to get there. So regardless of what has happened in other municipalities, the process, I believe, works, and I think we should give it a chance. And then if it turns out that it doesn't work, we will reevaluate.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Members of the public have a chance to address. They don't? Okay, I'm sorry. Now, on briefings, members of the public may not ask questions. On items of business, they may. Next up is Mr. Newman, manager policy planner, who will speak to us regarding the site visit process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. So I just want to give a bit of context to this issue. When the committee was sort of configured, there was this desire to have those with a cultural heritage background interacting around the same table as those with more of a built heritage background. And so we have, I would say, very different areas of expertise around the horseshoe here. And so part of the intention of staff in trying to open up opportunities for collaboration was to try and allow for shared learning and sharing of expertise. For the benefit of those, perhaps, that when we talk about alterations to designated properties, perhaps there are those around the horseshoe that don't have the expertise in what to be looking for and how to be critically looking at those applications. So we have, through the committee clerk, sent a couple requests to the full membership of this committee to come and join city staff when we do site visits. And I know that's caused some concern, because I think the concern expressed is that there's fear that we may be sharing personal opinions and giving personal guidance to applicants on what we think would make a good application, as opposed to giving critical opinion or critical direction on the basis of what is actually established in, say, a Heritage Conservation District plan, or speaking specifically to an attribute of a designated property. So I think that was the concern. But I guess I just wanted to clarify that the intent of trying to offer these site visits, these collaborative site visits, was to make sure that we have this opportunity for shared learning. We do it through the clerk to ensure we avoid getting quorum on site, which obviously we can't do. But I guess as a representative of staff, we would like to see this discussion around the horseshoe today so that we have a better understanding of what your expectations are. If this is something that you're interested in having us try to accommodate, or if you'd rather not. There is a clause in the procedural bylaw for this committee that says that staff can consult with this committee when we look to do site visits, and we can invite members of the committee to do site visits. So that ability is there. It's just a matter of whether or not we're doing it in the right way. So I think that's all I really wanted to say. I'm happy to receive feedback and helping us define how we want to move forward.
Mac.
So just to be, excuse me, so just to be clear, when we're on a site visit, it's okay that we give our own personal opinion? I mean, generally we're there and we're asking people questions and responding back and forth, and we can't help but give our opinion to a certain degree. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Is that a negative thing in terms of the process?
I don't think it's a negative thing. The only thing I would caution members of the committee on is at the end of the day, if you're looking at an application within the context of a Part 5 Heritage Conservation District, there are very clear public expectations established in that plan. So if the personal opinion is far removed from the expectations set out in this publicly approved plan, then I think there's a caution I would put out there. But I mean, I greatly respect the expertise of the members of this committee, so I certainly think you should be able to give your professional and personal opinion. I would just caution you in how you do it.
And clearly, although the process is laid out in the Part 5, you know, heritage itself is incredibly subjective. You know, I mean, what dormer looks good to one person doesn't look good to another person. You know, so it certainly can't be, you know, there is no it isn't like it's a, you know, building code where you put 2x2x4s here as opposed to 3. You know, it's very subjective. Always has been, always will be. There's no way around that. And so.
So do you think it would be a good idea for members to preface their comments at these site visits to the applicants to avoid misunderstanding of hinting that they might be in favor or not, or that like what the outcome of the file might be, or to clarify that at a site visit it's for sharing information and not really for talking about outcomes? Or
It may be worthwhile to do so. I mean, quite frankly, I think it'd be worthwhile for members of the committee to take a copy of the Heritage Conservation District Plan out with them and to think critically about what the attributes of the district are and to look at a proposal against those attributes. Where I think the value added to Mac's point is that you have expertise with construction techniques and ways to lessen the impact on stone or on mortar, on improving the way that you might actually look at approaching a window replacement or repair. So that's where I think you can go a little further beyond these high-level objectives of a Heritage Conservation District Plan and give technical expertise that an applicant may not be familiar with. But certainly premising the comment would probably be a good thing to do.
Sherman.
Thank you. Being a professional consultant is where my concern arises, that I offer professionally a service that now I might be encouraged to offer voluntarily. And where this is driven from or guided is a comment in the culture plan, and I'd like to read that to you. Sorry? It's just a statement, which is a recommendation. Kingston Municipal Heritage Committee can be more effective by allowing trained heritage staff to address details of heritage projects while it attends to broader heritage concerns. While it should consider heritage expertise in making decisions, the committee itself should not function as a panel of heritage experts. It is my concern that, or my intent that we structure this committee so that there is not a misconception that heritage experts provide advice. it is volunteers providing advice from a point of view of experience and also a point of view of compassion for a purpose, not professional experience. And so where, in my experience, what I've come to understand is public possibly misinterpretation of what this committee is, not experts, but compassionate people trying to give guidance to statements of direction, so to speak. So my concern is that professionals are hired to give professional advice, and we, as much as we are professionals bringing that hat to this committee, we have to be very careful not to provide professional advice, whereas it should be sought by a professional under contract. And then most importantly, the type of advice which is given to either an applicant, whereas site visit, I understand, often happens prior to application, so there's no formal application on file. So it's a shopping thing. How is this going to be received if I put an application forward? And ultimately, logically, it appears the application will be well received if it complies with statements in the district plan or designation to protect attributes, etc. So logically, the only advice we can give is this complementary to, is what you propose complementary or consistent with the initiatives of the district plans or designation? That's all I can say at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Mac and then Don.
Just 2 points. One, just sort of a statement. I mean, that was interesting. You read that to us about what we should be doing. But at the same time, the province hasn't it mandated there has to be some kind of expertise on the committee? Isn't that part of the mandate of the from the province for our committee to have expertise? So then, if we have expertise, and you're saying that we can't use our expertise, seems like doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Just to what I would say to Sherman's point about the professional advice and the two hats and the separation is, I'm a registered nurse. If I went to a site visit and someone had a sore leg and they said, "Oh, you're a nurse. What do you think I should do about my leg?" I'm obviously not there in a professional capacity as a nurse, but I can still give them my personal advice if I so choose, or I can say, "Look, you should go to the emergency department and get dealt with properly." Rather, because that happens all the time with me in life. People ask me medical advice, and I have to point out, the limitations of what that advice means as essentially a random passerby's that it just happens to have professional experience. That's the situation you're in at a site visit. You're a professional, but you're not there as a consultant. You're there as a Heritage Committee volunteer. So it's up to you how you dole out your advice and how you respond to questions from applicants. You can say, as you know, I'm a consultant, and I think what you need here is you need to hire a consultant to go through the design. I mean, you could say that, or you could say, well, maybe you might want to think of this aspect of your window, right? It's up to you. It's the same as it's up to me when, as a professional, this is part of your own professional training as what it means to represent yourself as a professional and as a community volunteer, right?
I had a second question there.
Okay, so Max got the floor, and then Don, and then back to Sherman.
I think that the point also is that quite often when we do the site visits, sometimes they've had the application in, sometimes the application hasn't been presented at that point, right? So although it's kind of a shopping list, it's a good thing for them to ask. I mean, it's good that they have some direction, to as opposed to coming to us with an application that is never going to fly, So I think we have to be able to at least have a conversation with them, and they ask us questions. And from my perspective, I would answer the questions as a person, as a personal opinion, as opposed to the committee. But I mean, that's why they're having the site meetings to ask advice, and then we're not going to talk to them again, maybe never, because they don't come to the committee anymore. we don't have a real discussion with them anymore, and that's our only opportunity to actually give them advice. Which I think is the biggest failing of this new system myself, that there's no communication directly between our committee and the owners. And so this is our only opportunity at the very beginning, and we never get it again. So it's the way it is, but not crazy about it.
Don?
A couple of comments. Well, Sherman raised some points that are a bit controversial and can take us into deep waters that maybe we don't want to go too far at the moment. But the paragraph you quoted from the culture plan 6 or 7 years ago, I think was very controversial. It was not really consistent with the spirit of the Ontario Heritage Act, which, as Mac pointed out, is quite clear, certainly in the provincial policy statement, that this committee is expected to have expertise in heritage buildings, conservation, architectural knowledge, and so on. It can also have more general background, people with more general backgrounds and interests. There are always going to be new people on this committee that don't know a great deal about built heritage, and one of the ways in which they can learn, and we all keep learning year after year, is by going on site visits and listening to the questions and answers and discussion between people who may be more experienced. And in that respect, I have really been rather concerned lately that none of the sort of, really very few people other than we three have gone to any site visits. And so there's a shortage of expertise, and often that expertise is really critical in guiding the application, supporting staff in their interactions with some quite difficult applications and so on. So there is a concern there, and I guess I have to say that at the moment the site visit process is struggling really to do what it's supposed to do.
And just to tie back to my medical analogy, doctors have meetings all the time about patients, and they discuss the very technical details of a patient's condition and symptoms and everything amongst themselves in a private room, right? But they also need to go in and examine the patient at some point, right? And if they don't, the nurses point out, well, how do you know what you're doing? You didn't even see the patient. So that's the site visit for us. The site visit is the going and examining the patient. So, and everything that entails. That's how I look at it anyway. Next, I had Councillor Schell, and I know Sherman wants to speak again.
Thank you. What a huge issue. I'm just going to do a little background for me. Growing up in Kingston in the 70s, when anyone who bought a heritage house was crazy because nobody knew what to do with them. You should tear them down. They're leaky, they're cold, no one knew how to insulate them, repair windows. It was a very different time. Over the years, many people became very experienced through their own work of understanding how these buildings worked, how they were built, how they could be fixed safely and well. And I think what we're in the middle of, and that's coming out in this discussion, is we now do have a professional class of people. Just as the number of people that have said to me, I learned this on the job, now you have to go to school to learn it. It's part of the professionalization that's going on everywhere, and including in built heritage. So I think that's what we're in the middle of right now. We don't want to start defining what is a professional heritage person who is a experienced heritage person who therefore could be considered professional. I think what we're in the middle of is a change, and the culture plan, that statement, tried to capture a big part of it. Also, as someone who has been self-employed all my life, I'm the same way. I don't want to give professional advice for free, but I'm quite happy to help lead people in directions. And we do have a lot of people now who make a living with built heritage. So we are in the midst of all that, and we're reaching a way to say, there are ways to get professional advice if you want to work on your house. The Heritage Committee for many years did a wonderful job of giving free advice. So we're now sort of trying to figure out how to move ahead, and this is a way that people can give advice based on Part 5, which has a very big list of what you have to pay attention to, you have to follow, along with giving people direction without saying, hire me. I mean, it's a mix we're in right now. I'm very pleased with the direction we're taking with staff and consultations. But as we said, it's new and we'll have to work through it. Thank you.
Okay, Sherman, it's your turn again.
First is, we are in a position, I guess, that's very enviable in that there are professionals available to participate in this committee, and these professionals may not be the proportion of professionals may not be available on a continuing basis. So possibly the motion of this committee in its present state is to present something, to create something that is that professional advice, that is that advice, that free advice, that is not dependent upon individuals, but is dependent upon this process. And I think, as that statement said, we could direct our attention to other matters, such as developing the Heritage the Resource Center, developing ways in which people will find the advice, encouraging people to do heritage impact statements, and not even just to do them, to consider the impact of the change on heritage attributes. And so there's that, and then there's the public perception online, on the website. Documents are available to the public. A guide to requests for alterations and additions, and the other one, which is, hang on, Property Owner's Guide to Heritage Designation. Each of those suggest, well, the first one suggests a pre-consultation is available from heritage staff and Municipal Heritage Committee. The Heritage Designation Guide to Owners.
Sherman, I know you've been doing a lot of reading and everything, but I think what staff's looking for in this discussion, which I've allowed to this point, is an idea of whether or not the site visit process is still valuable, and what is intended from a legislative standpoint to happen at a site visit.
So I say don't accept it the way that it is. Look at it and search for a definitive, the right way to do it, the publicly acceptable, the right way to have it be received, possibly in a better sense, but also as this is a standard service provided by the committee or this organization, whatever the organization, have it not be a backdoor thing, have it be a front door thing. This is what we offer you, because that's what's suggested in documentation. So let's make it be a big thing. This is what we offer you, and this is why we offer it, and this is from where we offer it. Don't have it be a backdoor contentious thing. Have it be a front door. This is what we do, and this is how we are qualified to do it. And ultimately, we're creating guidance for development. And that's what I want to encourage, let's make this a front door thing, not a back door thing.
Well, I don't know what you mean by front door and back door, but
Non-contentious.
the reality is we are all volunteers, including myself and Councillor Schell. We volunteered for this committee. You are all volunteers. When you go to a site visit, you volunteer to go to the site visit. That's the situation. You're volunteering because of your love of protection of heritage in Kingston, and your interaction in those is completely up to you, especially as a professional. Yes, Paige.
Thank you, and through you. What I'd like to suggest in terms of the site visit, I mean, there is already a process that's been happening for some time. Staff certainly do site visits as part of their due diligence on a file, which often includes members of Heritage Kingston. So I think that should continue. I think what we've learned from experience on the building side with prosecutions and things that we haven't been successful as a city is sometimes it gets difficult where we're giving site instruction on the site. And what we found from prosecutions is that that does bind the city, as that we're giving, as an official entity, giving direction on the site. And if something's happening that way, we can't just take it as an informal information. So what I would suggest is that the site visits continue, that there can be, informal discussion. Committee members can make their observations on the site, and then what they can do is provide that information to staff, and then staff can summarize notes from the site inspection that can formally go to the applicant, summarizing what was talked about, and that we can have it all vetted that way to make sure that we don't have conflicting information that's been given from one committee member or one staff member to the applicant on the same issue, and that it can be done in a coordinated fashion.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, do you have anything else to say about the site visit process?
No, I mean, with respect to what Ms. Agnew just said, I think that'll work fine. I do think at the end of the day, there's certainly a layer of discretion here. So moving forward, we'll continue to invite members of the committee to the site visit as at the outset of a project. And we'll do that through the clerk so that we can ensure we don't have a quorum as discussed. And yeah, to Ms. Agnew's comment, we'll receive comments on site and we'll summarize those. And the only thing I'm not sure about is just where there is a difference of opinion on site. And that difference of opinion will likely have to be captured in the summary notes from the visit and conveyed to the applicant. But perhaps before we circulate that correspondence, we can have some further collaboration amongst members of the committee to ensure we're okay with the messaging that we're providing as informal, free, premised advice. So yes, it's good feedback. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes that briefing. We have another briefing now, the one that's on the addendum. I believe Mr. Leary will introduce the briefing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been having difficulty with this PowerPoint, so let's see if it works this time. No. Do you want to try it on this? How did you do that? How did you? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before I introduce Director Canellos and let him begin his presentation, I thought it might be beneficial for the committee if I just set the stage before this briefing. The subject property that that's going to be presented today is the one we're in today. It's Kingston City Hall. It is a National Historic Site, as you're aware. It is included in the Market Square Heritage Conservation District, and therefore subject to the Market Square Heritage Conservation District Plan. City Hall is also designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act back in 1976, I believe, for its exterior, and then again in 2010 for interior features. So at this stage, this project, as I understand, there are no real specific details pertaining to the necessary alterations to the building itself and to Market Square in order to accommodate this installation. The city is in the early stages of planning and are therefore reaching out to the committee at this point to gain feedback, input, suggestions for this, as well as to flag any concerns that you may see moving forward. So, and in order to move forward with this project as per council's direction, and to make it a successful project, while still being sensitive to this, the immense cultural heritage value of this resource, which I would argue is Kingston's most important built heritage resource. The representatives from facilities are here to speak to this and are interested in what this committee has to say about it. So With that, I'd like to introduce the city's Director of Facilities Management and Construction Services, Spiros Canello.
Good morning, Committee Chair and members of the committee. As Ryan said, I am Spiros Canellos, and I'm Director of Facilities Management Construction Services. And with me here today from our department is Steve Murphy. He's Manager of Realty Construction Projects, and Marissa Mascaro, she's our Project Manager for this project. We're here today to provide a briefing and to consult with you on a project that we are working on for next year, which is illuminating City Hall, Springer Market Square, and adjacent buildings and features. As presented in Council Report 16-207 earlier this year, this is one of our Celebrating Canada's Sesquicentennial Centennial in 2017 projects, which includes illuminating City Hall and Springer Market Square. As well, as part of some of our ongoing life cycle management work that we're doing and energy retrofits, we had already planned to do some upgrades to the Confederation Park fountain lighting, British Wig building, and relighting the tower at the former former Fire Hall at 251 Ontario Street. It is early in the design process for us, but we'll be moving through concepts to construction fairly quickly. So we thought it was timely to speak to you today and invite your feedback. This project includes adding colored LED lighting systems that can be programmable for events in the square or City Hall for celebrations, commemorations, and other themes. We anticipate that we will be adding to the number of lighting fixtures around the perimeter, possibly mounting some lights, potentially adding some lighting on the rooftop and in the dome, and upgrading some of the electrical wiring and conduit to these locations as part of our work. Our implementation schedule, a quick overview of it is as follows. We've recently engaged a lighting design, electrical engineering project team to design the lighting and wiring. They are currently developing concepts, and so this meeting is timely for us to receive your feedback. We anticipate to have concepts just before Christmas. At that point, based on our concepts, we'll confirm with staff if any alterations, approvals are required, and work with staff to submit the necessary applications. We anticipate to purchase the lighting fixtures in January, February, and select the contractor in February. We are planning to begin construction in March of next year. And in the interim, renewal of some of our existing electrical feeds and conduits may commence as early as January. The lighting is targeted to be energized for the May 22nd weekend and fully commissioned and programmed for July 1st, 2017. We have a very tight schedule and very limited amount of time to get a very complex project up and running for July 1st, 2017. The slide here shows some examples of colored exterior illumination. In the first slide up here, that is San Francisco City Hall, and it's shown during Pride Weekend. The next slide in the top right-hand corner is Parliament Hill, and this is shown when they had their Northern Lights and Sounds and Light Show event. Down below here is Port Coquitlam City Hall, and they light up their building in pink for Pink Shirt Day, which is an anti-bullying day event. And then at the bottom right-hand corner is another example that was event lighting for the Tragically Hip concert in Springer Market Square this summer. Another example of this illumination is the temporary lighting recently set up around City Hall. Starting last week, we've set up temporary lighting around City Hall, the Tourism Information Center, and Springer Market Square as part of the partnership with St. Lawrence Parks Commission and promotional support for Lumina Borealis event. This serves as a mock-up for us to see what we can achieve from uplighting around the buildings. These lights, these lights were provided by St. Lawrence Parks Commission for this event and will be up from December 1st to February 2017. Here we're showing the locations where we've put up temporary lighting around City Hall, in the pits along the front and back, and on the rink lights. So what we, the light fixture that you see here is what Parks Canada gave us for this event. They're approximately 6 inches wide and about 10, 11 inches in size. So that fixture is actually about that big. And what we did is we have limited power supplies to the existing light fixtures. So what we did is we just attached these LED light fixtures to the existing light fixtures and turned some on and left some off. But they're very temporary. And at the same time, for the rink on Springer Market Square, we attach these LED lightings to the existing lights that are already there, and they're fed off that power supply. Also, as part of this project, this was the concept that the St. Lawrence Parks Commission used, and the resulting lighting effects are shown down here. And basically, the light fixtures that were placed in the previous slide created this effect down in the window wells. Some other considerations for us will include looking at the lighting levels from the rooftop and the dome, which may include replacement of and possibly adding lighting at the roofing level, potential supplementing the lighting in the dome, possibly mounting some additional fixtures to the top of the beams. Other considerations that we are making in developing the overall concept include, in addition to achieving the desired effects, consider locations based on winter maintenance and vandalism. The new type of light fixtures produce a lot less wattage and heat. Our current fixtures just melt the snow off them. With LEDs now, we don't have that heat. So in wintertime, if there's a lot of snow on the fixtures, they might cover the lighting effects that might be created by them. We're also maximizing the use of existing infrastructure, possibly needing to renew and supplement some electrical and communication cable feeds and conduits. And we're also looking at the current baseline lighting. So if there isn't an event happening at City Hall, just the current lighting levels and seeing if we can enhance them from what they currently are. So to summarize, the intention of our project is to illuminate City Hall and Springer Market Square and adjacent buildings and features with color lighting to celebrate events, commemorations, themes, in particular Canada's birthday in 2017 and other occasions moving forward. We are in the early days of developing our concepts. The installations will respect the heritage nature of these assets, giving careful consideration to locations of additional lights. These lighting systems will be programmable, so the color and intensity will be managed and maintained, and we're going to enhance where we can what we already have also from our base lighting on the facility right now. We sincerely appreciate this opportunity to join you here today, and we really appreciate any feedback you can give us for this project.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really exciting. So this is going to be permanent installations, I take it, and that's why it's going to be a bit complicated, because these aren't temporary. You've got to find a way to permanently attach lights.
Yes. The current light fixtures, or the temporary light fixtures we just put up with Parks Canada, St. Lawrence Parks Commission, are just temporary. We just plugged them in. Somebody went around with a laptop, programmed a color scheme, and that was it. These lights will be fully programmable. From a laptop computer, we could create any effect that we could do. And also we will put in the ability to add additional temporary lighting features that we could rent depending on what the occasion is and the special events. So we saw earlier Parliament Hill lit up in the top corner where you see the Canadian red maple leaf in the center of the building. That's an added piece of equipment that they add to create that feature on the existing lighting. So we will build a lot of programmability and flexibility into the system.
And I would imagine that the lighting will be sort of a combination of input from the culture department, IT, building, so that you will need to do consulting with each other to form these
Yes.
effects?
We're also going to work with the clerk's department and culture to set up a policy, just like we have a flag policy. And we will be consulting and working with all the other stakeholders together on this project.
Don.
Well, I think it's good that there's a plan to illuminate the fine architecture of this site. I guess as a committee member, my only concern is that the lighting should be, should intend to display the architecture, not distract from it or not compete with it. And in that sense, I hope the choice of color and use of color is kept at a fairly modest level, sort of relatively neutral colors for most things. I mean, purple is fine for rock concerts and things like that, but we're talking about May 24th and July the 1st. I think the image should be a little more neutral and illuminate the architecture that represents that period. So that's just a general comment, but otherwise.
Thank you, Don. Megan?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think it's, I wouldn't shy away from some of the vibrancy of the Canada Day. I think Kingston's a vibrant city, and I think that there's a good, maybe in between we could reach to where we could highlight our architecture, but also celebrate some of these wonderful events coming up. So I'm very excited.
Thank you. Sherman?
Thank you. Yes, this is really intriguing, and what I imagine and what I recommend is, in my experience of this, it could be very dramatic if I felt engulfed. If I'm standing at an activity in the Market Square, I felt engulfed by this program. In other words, lighting is all around me. So rather than, so if it's possible, definitely to highlight the squareness of it, highlight the site by having lighting actually be around us as we experience it in the square, not just highlighting buildings, but the collection of buildings as you suggested, so that it engulfs us when we are participating. And also I would suggest that we definitely strive to highlight the architecture as that what we're about, moody, etc., lighting that at times highlights the architecture, at other times highlights an event, but most times highlights the architectural attributes and features. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll let you speak, Sam, but I want to say something first. When this building and the square were built back in the 1800s, the 70s hadn't happened yet. The 70s, which is now almost 50 years ago, is when disco balls and discos and lighting effects actually became mainstream. They said, the expression disco died in the 70s. Not necessarily, because this is actually a concept that came out in the 70s where parties now had lighting effects, which they never had before, in private homes. It started in nightclubs in New York City and San Francisco, and then caught on from there, right? So this was a new dimension to human experience that we never had before, because in the 1840s and 50s, it was gas lamps and lanterns and things like that was providing lighting at night, none of which were powerful enough to illuminate the building in any great extent. So there's no way of actually having a heritage recreation of the actual conditions before electricity, right? So I would say that having this modern lighting feature, the modern technology, technological advances that you don't predict, having it interact with the heritage square and City Hall is very intriguing, and could, if done right, be very much a magnet for people to come to the square and to see City Hall and to see it in a new light, so to say. So I'm optimistic about the project. I know that it's quite ambitious and that the timelines are tight. I did have a technical question that was passed to me from the audience about the electrical current. From an engineering point of view, are you concerned about the added capacity needed to power all these lights?
The interesting thing is some of our lights, for example, in the front window wells take up 400 watts. These LED lights, we haven't actually done the design, would be 50 watts. So we feel the electrical load and the capacity within the facility is going to be very close. Some of our other big logistics challenges is getting data wiring to these locations, because when these lights were installed in the 70s in conduit under the concrete, there wasn't space allowed to run other wires, or in some cases even to replace the wires that are now. So we're going to have a few challenges. Electrical load, which we think will be close, but even more challenging will be communicating with these fixtures. There is technology that we can communicate through the electrical wire to these lights, so we're investigating that too.
So you don't see there's an increased risk to the heritage structures from the added current needed to power these lights?
We will follow legislative compliance with Electrical Safety Authority. Electrical engineers are doing the designs. We're definitely going to do something that is safe and compliant with all codes.
Is it theoretically possible that some of the lighting in the old building might need to be upgraded because of its age and because of this added strain?
Yes, well, part of the work that we're doing at Confederation Fountain and the former fire hall at 251 Ontario Street was that the lights were old. The lights in the fountain have passed their life and needed replacing. So there is some energy retrofits and advantages in reducing your greenhouse gas emissions from some of these lighting, replacing some of these lights.
Thank you. Councillor Schell, you're next.
Yes, thanks. It sounds like we will be able to have lights on every night. I mean, that's going to be part of the plan, that they're on each night. So some nights it can be more emphasizing the architecture, special nights, colors. I mean, from what I'm gathering, you can change this pretty quickly, and that's all part of what the policy will determine.
From our understanding, correct. For example, if Rec and Leisure on the rink have different theme nights, they might have one night a jazz night, and they want a certain kind of lighting feature on the ice surface to Canada. Well, you can't skate on Canada Day, but if there's some sort of event or based on their programming, they could adjust the lighting for the rink, or we could adjust the lighting for the little fountain in the rink, or it could be a combination of a variety of programming, or it could just be as it is today, enhanced.
Mac.
So you're talking about lighting up the fountain across the street too, the Confederation fountain?
Correct.
Is there any chance we put black light on that so it just disappears? We don't have to look at it anymore?
I don't know if black light actually makes things disappear. Well, I'm mindful of the time. It's 11:15. Please, if you have any further comments or questions, Mr. Canales can be reached through city email. Anything final to say before you go?
No, well, we appreciate this feedback, and we just want to assure you we want to enhance the heritage of these assets that with the work we're doing, and we'll be back to you again shortly to give you an update or get any approvals if required.
And good luck.
Thank you.
So that concludes the briefings, which is section 8 of the agenda. Section 9 is business. Often the bulk of the meeting is spent in this section. The first 3 items in business are always there, but not always populated. First, we have cultural heritage. There's nothing there today. There's nothing from cultural heritage today. Policy development and implementation is also nothing today. Heritage assets, with the 2 heritage assets, the 2 museums, nothing today. And then statutory business, there are several items, including an extra one on a different exhibit in the addendum. So when we come to that item, I'll point out that the exhibit is different. The first item is statutory business D, number 1, addition of 13 non-designated properties to the Heritage Register. You see their addresses there. I'm not going to read them out. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is the formal consultation under Section 27, Sub 1.3 of the Heritage Act regarding the inclusion of 13 new properties to the City of Kingston Heritage Property Register. These would be non-designated properties of heritage value, commonly known as listed properties. The properties that are before us today are outlined in Exhibit A through M, I believe, in your agenda package. They include 82 Beverly Street, this one, 67 Kensington, 771 Kingston Mills Road, 911 Purdy's Mill Road, 919 Sydenham Road, 923 through 9, oops, sorry. This is 1370 Woodfield Crescent in Westbrook, 919 Sydenham Road, 923 through 927 Sydenham Road, the Cataract United Church and Cemetery at 965 Sydenham Road, including the cemetery, the Christ Church and Anglican Cemetery across the street at 974 Sydenham Road, and again that includes the cemetery to the south and rear, the Dunlop House, 975 Sydenham Road, 983 Sydenham Road, and I believe it's the last one, 991 Sydenham Road. In order to be placed on the register as listed properties, council needs to endorse the recommendation that the property is one of local cultural heritage value. No notice is required to be sent to the owners, nor approval from the owners required. However, all of these property owners have been notified and are aware of the city's intention to include their properties to the register. The majority of these properties, 9 of them in fact, are from the 2011 Cataraqui Village Inventory Project undertaken by the city. We hired Dr. Jennifer McHenry to review the heritage value of these properties. They include the ones on Purdy's Mill Road and Sydenham Road. The property at 1370 Woodfield Crescent in Westbrook was as a result of the owner's heritage consultant, Dr. Letourneau from Golder & Associates in 2013, recommended it be listed as part of his review of a draft plan of subdivision application. The remaining 3 properties were researched and evaluated by the volunteers of the Heritage Properties Working Group. And while not required under the Heritage Act to evaluate these properties under Ontario Regulation 906, it is the practice of staff and the working group to make that assessment. And each of these properties have been evaluated and each of the properties include the short listing report that's in your agenda package that I scrolled through. And we are satisfied that they meet the requirements of the Heritage Act. Based on our research, it is the recommendation of staff that these 13 properties be added to the city's register.
Thank you. And maybe before we start, you just put it in context of the overall project of a sort of a backlog of properties that we were intending to treat in this way. How does it compare like what are the numbers that we're looking at, and will we be seeing more of this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the question because maybe I can take this opportunity just to recognize what we've done this year. So I think it's praiseworthy of staff and of the efforts of this committee and the working group. We currently have about 1,300 properties that are on the register as being either listed or designated. And this year alone, we've added 20% to that list, which is a huge achievement of the municipality overall. So where we have to go from here, this year we listed about 130 properties. 90 of those are recommended for designation. So it is very important that we continue to bring these properties to this committee for discussion and that we see them move forward to designation. But I do want to just recognize the efforts of staff on moving the work forward, and the working group and this committee alike. So there is work to be done. We have another 90 properties we want to bring forward, and we have a never-ending list of properties that we want to see brought to listing status as well.
And Councillor Schell and Mac and Don, you probably remember, this was started quite a while ago before I was on council, was it not, this process? No? Just in the last couple of years? Yeah, it's quite impressive, thank you. Any questions?
I think it's the first time the city's actually hired people to assist in the process, right? Before it was all just done by, Helen Finley, people like that who do reports at various buildings. I do have one, not really a question, but I was out at the mother's house on Sir John A. Macdonald and Princess Street. They've got the huge project in there, the sisters. And in the old barn that's in there that they've used for heritage seeds and so forth, that barn apparently is over 200 years old, and I'm just a little bit concerned with all the development that's going to happen in that property, which is great development. I think what the sisters are doing is wonderful there in terms of assisted housing and hospice and all that kind of thing. I just wonder if there might be worthwhile having a quick look at before that barn gets torn down or moved, before we can actually do anything with it. So that's just a suggestion.
See staff taking note of that. Thank you. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to agree and emphasize the change that's happened in the last couple of years is dramatic, and it does, again, speak to me to this idea that there are now professionals who, yes, get it done fast, but that's become their business. And they do a good, thorough job, and thank you to staff. There's been money put in the budget to do these designations, or the listings designations. So we've had volunteers for years working hard and continuing to work hard, because a number of these are through volunteer work, and a number of them are through professional work and hiring by the city staff. So again, we have a combination going, but it does mean that things are moving along in the direction that I think anyone who cares about heritage is pleased to see the city go. So thank you very much for what's going on.
Thank you. So we're, just to remind the order of things, we're still in committee questions, and then we will go to the public, and then we'll have any discussion over the recommendation, and then we'll vote on the recommendation. So any more questions to staff about the presentation or what's in the package on this item? Okay, so I'll go to members of the public. Comments or questions? Please state your name and go ahead.
All these modern things. Peter Gower, I'd just like to further underline what Councillor Schell has said. This is not a few years. This is about 25 years project. The owners of these houses received a notice of designation from Kingston Township. in about 1990. They received it again in about 1995, and it's just been left. And I would really commend the present staff for finally picking up this and a lot of other business that has been left just in abeyance for years and years and years. It's wonderful to see this, and I hope we get this sort of number at each of the following meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? We gather all comments and questions, and then staff responds all at once. Please state your name and go ahead.
Frank Dixon. I also like to commend excellent work by staff coordinating all this and research by the photographer and historian Dr. Jennifer McHenry. She's really done excellent work on this. And thanks to Mr. Gower for his, since I didn't realize it had gone back that far, but I'm seeing it as also kind of a piece from the amalgamation. We're nearly 20 years after amalgamation, and coordinating all of the different heritage elements between the different parts of what is now the new city of Kingston, right? You had Kingston Township, Pittsburgh Township, and so forth. So fantastic. Give it an A+ on the effort, and I hope to see this continue. Thank you.
Okay, the staff has a chance to respond. I didn't hear any direct questions. I heard everyone seems to like the idea that we're getting this work done. All right, so back to members of the committee. So now what we have to consider is recommendations. We need a mover and a seconder. The recommendation that council approve the following 13 properties for listing on the City of Kingston Heritage Properties Register under the Ontario Heritage Act. Don, you're moving the recommendation, seconded by Mac. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is item 2, which is a notice of intention to designate under the Ontario Heritage Act 4255 Bath Road, 1517 Sunnyside Road. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are 2 properties that we are proposing to serve a notice of intention to designate on. I apologize. The top one on your screen is the Aiken House at 4255 Bath Road, and this one is the Johnson Farmhouse on Sunnyside Road. The Aiken House, if I can start with that one, was built in the 1850s. It's a good example of a classically balanced limestone farmhouse, and it has associative value through its connection with Robert Aiken and the Aiken family, who owned and worked this property for many years, as well as Howard McCullough, who was instrumental in the development of the Elmwood community. This is also a landmark along the historic Bath Road. And the full statement of the draft bylaw is included in your agenda package. The second property that's before you today is the Johnson Farmstead on Sunnyside Road. It was built between 1860 and 1878. It's an excellent example of a mid-19th century vernacular brick farmhouse, and it's a landmark along this streetscape. So as part of, these were both evaluated as part of the Cultural Heritage Property Evaluation and Conservation Project by the consulting firm of Archaeological Research Associates. They prepared the background reports and undertook the necessary heritage evaluation of these properties under Ontario Regulation 906. They've been reviewed by the members of the Heritage Properties Working Group, and both the reports and the draft bylaws have been presented to the owners who have reviewed them. Staff have met and discussed these with both these owners, who are eagerly awaiting the designation of their properties. And unfortunately, neither of them can be here today. So, Mr. Chair, we recommend that the committee support the servants of the notice of intention, and should no letter of objection be received by the clerk's office, that recommend that council proceed with the designation of these 2 properties.
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? That's fairly straightforward. Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none. So there's one recommendation for the designation of two properties. The language is the same for both. It's the Heritage Act language there. You can see it there in your package. I'm just going to read the first one. The second one is identical. So the recommendation, there's two clauses for each property, and they're identical. So that council serve a notice of intention to designate the property located at 4255 Bath Road, known as the Aiken House, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest, pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, attached as Exhibit A to report HK 17005, and that should no notice of objection be received by the clerk of the City of Kingston within 30 days of the publication of the notice of intention to designate, that council approve the designation bylaw for 4255 Bath Road, known as the Aiken House, attached as Exhibit B to report number HK 17005, and carry out the requirements as prescribed under Section 29(6) of the Act. And then there's two more clauses regarding 1517 Sunnyside Road. That's the entire recommendation. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Don, seconded by Sherman. Any discussion? Okay, so this is, again, to remind everyone, this is statutory business. So this is regular Ontario Heritage Act legislative business that we are to deal with. So that's what we're doing. So all those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're up to item 3, and this is the one where the exhibit was corrected in the addendum. So this, what's in the addendum, it's the Beach Grove Cottage. What's in the addendum is the correct exhibit. It replaces the exhibit that came out in the original package. So this is an application for heritage permit for 752 King Street West, 17 Gable Lane, Beach Grove, on the Kingston Provincial Campus. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you mentioned, this property is on the Kingston Provincial Campus. It is 752 King West. The subject property is known as the former Rockwood Asylum. It is now the Kingston Provincial Campus. It contains a number of heritage buildings, including this one, and a cultural heritage landscape. The subject application relates specifically to this 2.5-story limestone building. Actually, I got pictures here. Known as Beach Grove Cottage. It was built in 1893 and with various additions built on over the years. It's located to the north of the South Cottage and the large Penrose Asylum building, and just west of the Leahurst building. And it is accessed by a private lane and has a private address of 17 Gable Lane. An application is before you today under Section 33 to request the approval to construct a black metal fire escape, which will come down. This picture here shows the wall where the fire escape will be descending from. The plans that were handed out at the beginning of the meeting replace the ones that are in your agenda package. These were revised. Why is it not going down? There. This is the plans for the fire escape. It is to exit through a window on the second floor, which will be replaced with a hinge-type window that will be installed within the existing opening. There'll be a staircase built on the inside of the bay window. And the new window will have the glazing pattern that matches the existing. The fire escape will cross the roof on a metal walkway, which you can see in the bottom right of the screen, with a railing, and it will descend down 3 flights of stairs on the west-facing wall on the north side of the building. Also, the applicants are proposing to replace 4 exterior doors, namely the front door. Again, I believe I have these here. The front main door of the building, the lower level lobby door, also facing south on the building, the rear emergency exit and the rear staff exit, both on the north sides of the building. All of the existing doors are of varying ages and none of the original to the building. The new doors are to be metal, partially glazed, similar in style to the one that was recently approved at the Rockwood House. And I have a picture of that in your agenda. With respect to the main door on the building, which again, there's a picture right here. The existing side lights are metal framed, will be narrowed slightly to accommodate a new wider door, and a rectangular transom will be replaced with an arch transom and tracery above. The existing door openings on the lower level of the lobby are proposed to be widened in order to allow for the improved accessibility. The existing concrete lintel, I have a picture of that door or not. The existing lintel will be replaced. It's currently a concrete lintel, as you can see here. This one, on the right opening there. So the lintel will be replaced with a new limestone lintel. The stones will be cut as necessary slightly to accommodate the new wider door. Originally, the application came in to include the widening of 2 other doors, but after further investigation, it was determined that they could support the widened door without changing the stone. So it's simply just the one facing south on the lower level. There's also some landscaping proposed, which you see on the plan, to include a new walkway and new barrier-free parking spots along the existing driveway. So the plans are included in your agenda, as well as the ones that were handed out at the beginning of the meeting. In terms of our review, this property is a cultural heritage landscape in our official plan. It's identified by the province of Ontario as a property of cultural heritage value and as a cultural heritage landscape. The buildings, there are a number of buildings and landscape features on this property that are of heritage value, including this particular building. And in addition, there's a Part 4 bylaw for the Rockwood House and the property. The 2-story limestone building, as I mentioned, was built in 1893 as an infirmary and has served many purposes over the years, most recently as programming office space for the Providence Care Hospital, and it is currently vacant. The owners, Infrastructure Ontario, on behalf of the Province of Ontario, wish to renovate the building for a new office space. Various alterations are being done to the interior of the building to accommodate this use. Most of the windows in this building were replaced about 10 years ago with metal-clad wood windows or vinyl windows. The doors are modern exterior doors installed, we think, around 1993. The proposed new doors will improve and unify the appearance of this building and allow for the compatible use. Altering original openings in heritage buildings is discouraged. The revised application only proposes to widen the south-facing door at the lower lobby level to allow for improved accessibility. Visual evidence of this door, such as the concrete lintel and cut marks around the opening, would suggest that it's not original to the building. The alteration proposed to this opening will allow for the installation of a more accessible door and proper limestone lintel. According to the cutting of the stones surrounding the door openings will be as minimal as possible, and once complete will have little further impact on the heritage character of the building. Staff recommend that the new limestone lintel replicate the stones throughout the building as closely as possibly, and that all masonry work be completed in accordance with the city's policy. Alterations are also proposed to widen the existing main front door. This does not require any change to the stonework itself, only the removal and redesign of the metal sidelines and transom, which were added somewhere in the 1970s or early 80s. Older photographs of this building show a double door with no side lights and a decorative arch transom with tracery above. Staff are recommending that the new transom above the main door entrance be arched in order to fit into the existing opening, and that documentary evidence be used to help design the tracer pattern on that transom. The applicants have agreed to include the new arch transom with tracery in their plans, and these revised plans, I believe, show that. As this entrance is not a barrier-free entrance, staff have also encouraged the applicants to consider the use of double doors and no side lights. I understand that the applicants would prefer, though, to stick with the original plan to use a single door and to modify the side lights. With respect to the fire escape, the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada by Parks Canada notes that new roof construction should be designed to be inconspicuous from the public right-of-way and not to damage or obscure character-defining elements. The nature of this property does allow public viewing of all sides of this building. The applicants are proposing to locate this fire escape in as inconspicuous a location as possible. It's along this west-facing unbroken wall on the north side of the building. The fire escape will be a simple design, painted black. It is similar to the one on the Leahurst building, which is a picture of in your agenda package. And it is located so as to not require any fire protection of any adjacent windows and openings in the building. While it will be visible while walking around this building from the rear, it will be very minimally, if at all visible, from the south primary facade of this building, which where it faces Gable Lane. The installation of the new fire escape will facilitate the use of the second floor for new office for the provincial government, which will once again make this building relevant. And giving a heritage building purpose helps to secure its existence into the future. Staff have reviewed and are satisfied that the proposed alterations are designed and located in a manner that minimizes the impacts to the cultural heritage value of the property. The proposed impacts are acceptable and are necessary in order to allow the adaptive reuse of this building pursuant to current requirements of the building code and in keeping with local and provincial best practices for heritage conservation. This application was circulated to our to internal agencies and to the committee itself. Comments have been consolidated and are included as Exhibit C to this report. And Mr. Chair, our recommendation is outlined in the agenda package, and we recommend support of this alteration with the conditions outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Is there anyone here from the applicant side, in case there's any questions?
Yes, sorry, I believe they are here.
So questions from members of the committee can be to staff or to the applicant's agent.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with this proposed alterations at all, except for the door that you're widening. It looks to me like you're planning just like trying to slice those limestone coins to make them wider, or are you going to take the coins out, cut the stone back, and then replace the coins as they were?
If you don't mind, I've brought some photos, and what it does include is a close-up of the actual door and the brickwork, so you can have a better idea of what is existing and what section of the brickwork we're planning on taking out.
Stonework, yes.
So as the photographs are distributed, if you don't mind stating your name and your connection with the project for the record.
My name is Linsabel Duke, and I'm with Nor Architects and Engineers, and I'm the lead designer on this project.
Yeah. So I'm still not clear as to how you're proposing on doing that, whether, I mean, the line almost shows like you're just gonna take a saw and cut down the coins. I certainly wouldn't recommend that. I'm just curious. Yes, please. If you stay at the, oh, okay.
So right here, you can see the hatch mark on the front page, top right-hand side. You can see the hatch marks on the lintel and down each side of the door. That is where we're proposing to do the widening. Next to the picture on the left-hand side of that shows an edge detail of the existing brick and where the door is. The stone, sorry. So the drawing that we're looking at, on the top right-hand side that has been handed out, you can see the hatch marks that show the areas of lintel above the door and the masonry stonework on either side of the door that will be removed. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side of that one, top row, center, you'll see a close-up of the masonry stonework that is existing. It has a lot of cut marks. It has obviously been retrofitted at some point recently and is not original. We are proposing that that section on either side, it's identical on either side of the opening right now. We're requesting to take that, or proposing to take that section out and bring it back to the original stone face.
So to carry on my question, that looks to me like to be a hammered dressed end of a stone, not a separate piece put in there. Am I missing something?
Correct. No, you are correct.
So you're proposing like just to cut that on site?
Yes.
I would strongly oppose that approach. I would think you'd want to keep that hammer dress detail that is there, and they could do that by taking it apart, cutting the stones back into field stones, and then reinstalling the existing piece so that hammer dressed edge stays as it is. That's my recommendation.
And we can do that. That's not an issue. So I have another package if you're interested. Just gives some additional information. I'll pass them around.
So we'll be asking the clerk to add these photographic material to the package when it goes to council. No. All right, it's just the permit. Okay. It doesn't go to council, but it'll be in the reference we made to it in the minutes that we received. More photographs of the work.
So if you look on page 3 of the most recent photographs that I have sent out, on page 3 you will find the Leahurst building that Ryan had originally mentioned, as well as the Rockwood House, both heritage sites located on the same provincial campus. All 3 buildings are actually next door to each other. These fire escapes are very similar to what we are proposing to add to the Beech Grove location. And on the last page, it gives an idea of what a pre-manufactured walkway system is. It's graded railings. This would be from the window to the edge of the roof. Then it will attach into your fire escape system. The window below at the bottom is a tilt and turn window. We're proposing that it would act as an egress door, but it still looks like a window, and it would be fashioned with mullions the same as the existing windows, and would, from the outside or inside, it would be very difficult to tell that it is not a typical window.
Okay, so we're still in question section of the package. So questions to the applicant or to staff? Yes, Don?
Concerning the front door, the main entrance, I see a photograph here. It's on the front page of this recent thing in the lower left. That shows the proposed design. It's referred to as an arched transom, but the arch is very slight. It's almost flat, but you're going to maintain that slight arch. Do you know, or are there pictures of what the pattern of that transom originally was?
Yes, we do have some photographic evidence. I don't have any on me right now, but The transom is identical to what we are showing. The original transom is exactly what we are showing in the drawing that you are mentioning. We were supplied by the Heritage Review the original drawing and asked to recreate it using the existing brickwork, which is what we've done.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Sherman.
Thank you. I commend this work. I think it'll look good. One question is the attachment of the fire escape to the stone wall. Although there is a precedent that existing fire escapes are cantilevered or hung off of the stone wall, I wonder, is it possible to consider that the structure be provided to the fire escape through posts in ground rather than attachment to wall, just to encourage less attachment, requirement for attachment and stress on the existing stone wall?
In answer to your question, yes, we have discussed that with a fire escape manufacturer. We believe at this point that there is no reason we cannot have this a standalone feature, and we do have to tie it into the building for an engineering perspective, but we can have a standalone system with 2 tie rods epoxied into the existing wall, and therefore instead of numerous amounts of penetration through the existing stone facade, we would only have 2 points. At this point, we are waiting on the final design. We have tendered the drawings, and the general contractor is to supply final construction details and shop drawings for the fire escape with the engineered drawings. And that will be something that's worked out during the final design of the actual fire escape. What we're showing is proposed design, but it is not the final design.
Sorry, Matt, could you just repeat your question for the clerk because you didn't have your microphone on? Make sure you turn on your microphone as well.
Yeah, sorry. Now my question was these rods are going to be put in, are the rods in the grout lines where they should be according to our stone, masonry guidelines, as opposed to in the middle of a stone?
Don.
Well, I heard what you said, but I'd be surprised that if you're only having a limited number of attachment points, that you could support it by going into the mortar joints. I'd probably have to go right through the wall and be attached on the inside, through the stone and right through the wall. So in that sense, the suggestion of using more ground support with a light attachment to the wall would be much less damaging to the stone fabric. So.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll go to members of the public, and then we'll come back for deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have this written out to help the clerk here. Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting project. I have 5 points I'm going to make. So number 1, I want to commend the outstanding drawings that were provided, engineering and architectural drawings, first-class work. Second point is a question. I'm a little bit unclear just as to whether there is a handicap entrance to this building, either there or to be put in, because neither the photographs nor the drawings actually show that. I'm just sort of looking at the bottom. Okay, this would be like page 5 of the addendum, just on the bottom right-hand corner there. So number 3, there's been some discussion as to whether properties on this site are haunted. So I'm wondering if that's been looked into. Semi-serious on that. Number 4, just with the drawing, on the second last page of the addendum, top right-hand illustration, I'm just seeing like a typo there. It just says closet shelving heights. Maybe it should be shelving heights. Perhaps could be corrected. And then my final question has to do with following on from some of the points raised by the committee with respect to the fire escape installation. I'm just wondering how deeply into the stone are you going to have to drill to establish an actual fastener contact, and then you're going to have to close in around that with, likely concrete or whatever. So that might be an aspect to look at. You looked at that similar design on other buildings in the area, and there might be some improvements made just due to advancing technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Any other members of the public? Please come forward, state your name, speak into the microphone.
Thank you. Helen Finley, 52 Earl Street. I really would like to support the staff's recommendation that the sidelights be eliminated. They're going to be so narrow that they are just going to look like a distortion. And as far as the double door, you can build a single door, and by running a bead up the middle, which you would see is a traditional thing, you can create the impression of a double door without actually having a pair of doors. So I would suggest you do that. I don't, perhaps I could ask, is this going to be the main entrance? And I'm not sure. If it isn't, I can't see why you can't do that. And what I'm wondering what the rationale is for keeping the sidelights rather than we like sidelights or we don't like sidelights. Is there an actual rationale for that?
Thank you. So I guess you have a chance to respond to the questions from the public.
So first question was, is there an accessible entrance? Yes. There is currently not an accessible entrance, but we are discussing, as per the proposed plans, to enlarge the opening to the elevator lobby, which would allow for an accessible entrance to this building. In regards to widening the front door, our only concern would be if your door is oversized to a certain degree, you need to be able to operate that door with a certain amount of force. It may not be as easy to do on this type of door as an exterior door with all the hardware that we have to put on it for fire reasons and for life safety. We will have to look into that further. That would be my concern, that the amount of kilonewtons required would exceed what is allowable by code.
Thank you. So you see the recommendation in the package, 6 aspects of the work and then 6 conditions in the recommendation. This is part 4 designated, so we vote on the recommendation per se and approve or deny the heritage permit. So we need a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor so we can discuss it. Moved by Mac, seconded by Sherman. Who would like to go first? Mac.
I've got an addendum that I would like to suggest.
Amendment?
Sorry?
Amendment?
Amendment, sorry. Sorry, yeah. It states, unless it can be shown that the stones can be cut back cleanly and hammer dressed in situ to match the existing, it is recommended that the window of the widening of the opening for the new doorway at the elevator be accomplished by labeling and removing the existing stones with hammer dressed edges, cut back the field stones as necessary, and then reinstalling the existing dressed stones. That's one, and that's...
I'm just wondering, Mac, which of the, let's see, the
elevator door.
So which number is that then?
That's the one that we're talking about widening. The I don't know. I'm not sure what number.
Number
it is.
5.
This one here.
Is it the lower level lobby entrance?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So number 5.
Number 5, okay. Whatever door it is.
So the number 5 reads currently as follows: widening of the lower level lobby entrance opening facing south, including the replacement of the lintel with a new limestone lintel.
That's the one.
And then you want to add it at the end
Yes,
of that.
please,
So
yes.
added at the end of number 5.
Hope you can read that.
So it's an amendment to add the wording as read out by Mac. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Schell. So Mac has already spoken to it. Do you have anything else to say? All right. Does anyone else want to say something? Sherman?
Thank you. I would like to, I guess it's add a similar amendment. No.
We're speaking to Mac's amendment.
That one, okay.
And then you can add another amendment
enough.
later. So you basically speak to if you agree or support, or we're going to support Mac's amendment, or that's what you would say at this point. No further discussion? Okay, then we'll vote on Mac's amendment. You want to read it? Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to read it here. So adding at the end of number 5 of the first clause, after the word lintel, it is recommended that the widening of the opening of the new doorway be accomplished by labeling and removing the existing stones with hammer-dressed edge cut back on field stone as necessary, and
Reinstallation.
this installing, then reinstalling the existing dressed stones, unless it can be shown that the stones can be cut back cleanly and hammer dressed in site to match existing. All right, seeing no further discussion, we will vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? And that carries. So now we're back to the recommendation. It still is with six descriptions of work and 6 conditions. Any further discussion? Sherman.
Thank you. My concern is with respect to the first point, the construction of the black metal fire escape, and wish to add a condition that the applicant consider supporting the fire escape with posts in ground where possible, rather than brackets on walls, as was discussed, but that be a condition.
So the amendment proposed by Sherman is to add another condition. So this would be a 7th condition, I guess.
Wouldn't this be altering the first, I don't know, the first statement?
Do any of the conditions apply to the fire escape right now?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
It's one of the first. There's nothing in the conditions that speak directly to the fire escape, I don't think, unless I'm mistaken. Right. So maybe it could be added to number 2 because you're talking about the railings of the fire escape. So maybe at the end of number 2, does that make sense, Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, is it written down?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if you can give it to the clerk. We need a seconder for Sherman's recommendation, seconded by Dawn. If the clerk could read it out, please, and then we can have discussion.
And the amendment is that the applicant consider supporting the fire escape with posts in ground where possible, rather than with brackets on walls.
Thinking about that again, I don't think that's a condition. That's actually an addition to the first bullet under the proposed scope of work. It says construction of black metal fire escape existing from an upper story window traversing the roof and down the rear wall of the building, semicolon. So maybe that's where you could put that, because it's describing the type of work, correct?
No, it is a condition. It's simply a suggestion.
Right. Just one. Maybe you should ask staff's opinion on where this amendment would fit.
Mr. Chair, we tend to frame these recommendations in 2 parts. The top 6 points are what's happening on site. It's the alteration itself. The following are the conditions. So my suggestion would be perhaps a number 7 is easier to add an additional condition than to try to modify one that's already there. It might be cleaner from a implementation perspective.
Okay, I think you're right. It's a standalone suggestion that, if passed, would just be another bullet. So I guess number 7. So the addition of a 7th condition, that the applicant consider supporting the fire escape with posts in ground where possible rather than with brackets on walls. So it's seconded. Any discussion? Don? Yes, so it's seconded by Don. Any discussion? Sherman?
Just wondering if added to that, we need to specify the potential attachment, as was in discussion, that there will be attachment to the wall. Do we need to emphasize the nature of that attachment if it is indeed by posts?
Well, it's your amendment, so if you wanted to add wording that would be friendly, so you wanted to add what exactly?
It may be covered by the masonry policy. So if it's just a light attachment to the wall, then it could go in the mortar joint.
So that's an amendment to the amendment. Okay, so what it says right now is that the applicant considers supporting the fire escape with posts in ground where possible rather than with brackets on walls. And then you're suggesting that the attachment, the attachment is covered in the masonry policy. And that's already the very first, no, the second, one of the conditions, the 6th condition is all masonry works shall be completed in accordance with the city's policy on masonry restoration on heritage buildings. Okay, so no discussion on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So there's now a recommendation with 6 bullets for describing the work and 7 conditions, including the amendment. The 5th bullet of the work has been amended by Mac's amendment, and there's a 7th bullet under the conditions by Sherman's amendment. Other than that, it remains all of the wording in the staff recommendation is still existing. There's just been wording added by the committee. So any discussion on the amended recommendation? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amended recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. And that will go to council in the next opportunity. Good luck with the work. Now, Mac, this next one is the one where you declared a pecuniary interest. So if you don't mind leaving the chamber. Oh, that's right. That's right. He's also the agent for the applicant. So you remove yourself from the horseshoe and put on your other hat as the agent. And then when we get to the deliberations after the interaction with the agent, we'll ask you to leave the chamber. So, yeah. So this is application for heritage permit under the Ontario Heritage Act, 92 Sydenham Street. I believe it's a Part 5 issue. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is at 92 Sydenham Street. It's on the west side of Sydenham Street, just south of Johnson, in the old Sydenham Heritage Conservation District. The subject property contains the south half of a 2.5-story semi-detached brick dwelling built in 1857 by plans by well-known architect John Power. A series of alterations were recently approved on this application, as you recall. Council approved them on September 6, 2016. The applicant is now requesting further alterations to this property under the applications before you today. These, and this is requested under Section 42 of the Heritage Act, so it's a Part 5 property. The alterations before you are a new gable roof dormer with a tripartite sash window to be installed on the south side of the dwelling, on the dwelling's roof, obviously. The dormer will be clad in wood clapboard siding, painted a dark shade to match the roof. And that's this dormer here. The applicant is also requesting extension to the previously approved second-story wood deck, which you can see on the plan before you, to enlarge it from 20 feet to 24 feet. And finally, the applicant is requesting the addition of a 2.5 feet onto the fencing to act as a privacy screen, which you can see here just above the railing between the property to the north. So this property was designated under Part 4 originally in 1984, but it's not, and it is now included within the Old Sydenham District, which was approved last year. The Heritage District designations are created to conserve the cultural heritage value of the defined area for the public benefit. As such, policies regarding alterations within the HCD are generally more restrictive when dealing with factors that may be experienced from the public in terms than those that may be experienced from private spaces. Flexibility is built into these policies that do not contribute to enhancing the public benefit of the district designation and allows property owners more options when choosing material and considering alterations to these private spaces of their property. The majority of the proposed alteration before you relates to the rear or side of the dwelling, which is almost entirely out of view from the public. It is also important to note that all of the features noted in the property inventory and reasons for designation and designating bylaw from 1984 are those features located on the public street-facing facade of the building. While the proposed extension to the rear rooftop and railing will be partially visible from Johnson Street, it has been designed at a lower height than the existing dwelling roof, therefore satisfying the applicable policies of the HCD plan. The enlargement of the rear deck will have little additional impact on the attributes of the district or the individual attributes of this property, particularly as considered from within the public realm. The owners wish to take advantage of an underutilized attic space in this building and are proposing to create a new master bedroom at this level. The proposed additional dormer will provide additional light into this space. Section 541 of the Sydenham plan permits dormers to be added to heritage properties. The proposed south-facing dormer will be located between the two existing brick chimneys and will be constructed at a lower level than the existing roof line in accordance with the district plan policies. Staff have reviewed and are satisfied that the proposed alterations meet the designation goals and objectives of the district plan, particularly with respect to those goals related to supporting and encouraging the conservation and continuing use of the district's heritage attributes, which include this building. This application was circulated internally and comments are provided. It was also circulated to members of the Heritage Committee, and those comments are included on Exhibit D of your report, of your agenda, excuse me. And Mr. Chair, we recommend approval of this application, subject to the conditions outlined in the report, and I believe the agent is here if they would like to speak.
Thank you. Before we go to that, I just wanted to draw attention because this is this is a Part 5 process. So subject to the presentation we heard or the briefing we got from the clerk this morning. So this is us putting it in action, keeping in mind that we haven't had our DASH training yet. Nevertheless, I'd like to commend committee members that submitted the comments in the 5-day window. This is the first time using the new system, and we haven't had the DASH training yet, so that's understood. So just to remind folks how it goes, there is already some comments in the package under Exhibit D, as Ryan just said. There's also a synopsis in the report. At the end, as it says, consultation with Heritage Kingston, and it sort of has staff's interpretation of and response to some of those comments. That's on page 66 in the package at the bottom, 66 and 67. And then the comments themselves in the package are on page 84 to 87. And then today we have another chance to make comments, as we were told in the briefing, the final comments. So this would be new comments, things not already covered in submissions we've made so far. And because this is the first time we're going through it, I'm sure staff would incorporate any further comments by email tomorrow or the next couple of days as they prepare the final package for council. So with that being said, we will go now to the applicant's agent if there's anything to add. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is it working? Okay. So a couple of things. I've been working with these people for a while now in this building, and they're doing an incredible job. They've got the whole place out right to the stone walls, and they're really quite. They really want to do the project properly. The addition of the back deck, or the addition of another few feet in the back deck, just basically extends it to the roof of the back addition, as opposed to stopping it, 3 or 4 feet shorter. And we just thought it sort of made more sense. And the privacy screen is because the neighbor has a deck right beside them, which is only like a few feet away, so they just want a little bit of privacy because this deck, the owners are going to be living in the 2nd and 3rd floor, so this deck will be their main sort of outside living space. In regards to the reason why we're asking for this additional dormer, originally we thought that I'd done work in the building to the left of this quite a few years ago, and we redid the attic up there, and the walls up there are 52 inches. The buildings from the outside look absolutely identical, and we presumed that we had the same height of attic space there as what we did in this building, and even the other half of 92-94 Sydenham Street. The owners have been up to that attic space, and they had nice high walls and so forth. But in reality, once we get into it, we discovered that the ceilings on the 2nd floor of this place are 12 feet, where the ceilings on the 2nd floor of the building next door, although built by the same builder, are quite a bit less than that, like they're 9 or maybe 10 feet. So once we get up there, we realized we didn't really have enough room to make that space into an adequate living space. So what we thought we could just drop the whole, we could drop that whole 3rd floor wall, or 3rd floor level, because there's 12 feet of living space in the 2nd floor, so it would be fairly easy to do that. But then we want to restore the existing transom windows that haven't been in there for quite a while. And so we realized that the most we could drop that floor would be 12 inches without getting into the way of the transom windows and blocking those windows. So they didn't want to do that. So then in order to make that upstairs space work, that's why we're asking for the new dormer on the south side. We would have asked that in the first place. We had to realize that the existing wall heights up there were as low as they were. We didn't realize we couldn't even, at that point, that space is closed off. We couldn't even get up in there. So that being said, and also the dormer is basically virtually impossible to see. If you look at the photograph on page 75, you can see how the house right beside is very, very tight. There's 2 chimneys up there. I had to get back on the other side of the street with binoculars just to see if the actual chimneys were there. Now those chimneys are going to be rebuilt in the future as well by the owners, because they're not in very good shape, and they're not near as good as the chimneys on the other side of this building and the building next door. They're all built by the same builder. Let's see, I think that's... I think that's pretty well it. At some point, we're going to be asking for advice, not today, but just people can think about it, on what to do with the front steps. The front porch in that place there, and the one next door, is very, obviously it's been changed. It's not very attractive. At some point, they'd like to build a nicer porch there, but so maybe some people at some point give me some advice on that. So I think that's all I have to add, but I'm here for any questions you might have.
Okay, so you'll see the recommendation in the package. There's 3, the scope of work is three things. There's already been something approved on this property. The 3 things are the dormer, the extension of the deck and the privacy screen. So that's what the recommendation is dealing with. So that's what we are here to deliberate. So questions from members of the committee to the applicant or to staff? Yes, Don.
Mac, as you know, I suggested maybe a double window in the dormer would be more in keeping with a typical dormer of that, Victorian building than a triple window. But I think, I understand you're trying to get as much light in there as possible. What do you think? Is a double window not going to work?
Oops. We'd actually talked about that I talked about it with Ryan. And the reason I went to triple is because that wall is so high, like it's a little bit over 4 feet by the time it gets to the bottom of the windows, and we have to leave room for flashing. The windows are very short. And so two windows would look really stubby there. And we wanted to stay with double hung windows, which is the style of the rest of the house. So we wouldn't have a problem with going for 2 windows, Don. It's just that they'd be very wide and very short. And when I talked to Ryan, we discussed that and realized that probably better staying with the 3. We don't have a problem with the 2. It's just that I don't think they'd look very odd, I think, as a double hung window.
Any other questions? Yes, Sherman.
As part of that conversation, Mac, would you consider reducing it? The plans do not show the width of the dormer, but the dormer appears to use up approximately 80 to 90% of the space between the 2 chimneys. Would you consider, and on plan, Exhibit A, page H2, it shows the plans and the 3rd floor. That appears to be in a bathroom and a tub in front of that window and empty space beside. Wondered if the size of the dormer, you'd consider reducing the width, the overall width of the dormer, such that it is almost equivalent to the removal of one of those windows, so it becomes a narrower dormer with 2 window units, thus reducing the floor area that is created. On that.
So this is the only time that we can interact with the agent. So I'll allow the question. Just keep in mind that the committee doesn't have the ability to make amendments to the recommendation on this like we did in the last item. So we couldn't, if you're thinking about suggesting another amendment like that, unfortunately the process doesn't allow for amendments to the recommendation. It only allows us to either support or not support. So, but this is an opportunity to interact with the agent, so maybe he can respond to your question.
So the question was just whether we can make the dormer narrower. The owners certainly don't want to do that. Whether it's narrow, whether it's wider, it can still be virtually not seen from the street. And because of the height of it, I think even the width might look a little bit better. But the owners are going to live there for the next, hopefully for many days to come. And they're trying to build quite a luxurious kind of space where they want to live, because they're spending a ton of money on this place too, and they're doing all the apartments very high end, so they'll have good tenants. And in the bathroom, they want to have a separate shower and a separate tub, which is fairly standard these days. And we really needed that space in order to make it work. I don't see any great advantage of making it smaller, so I would say that we're not in favor of doing that.
So I guess part of the process is to add more input, so that comment will be captured by staff about the suggestion of a smaller dormer, and that will be in the synopsis. The correct place to put those comments, though, is when we move the recommendation, we come to that point, and then we have a chance for final comments, right, according to the process. So right now we're still in the questions, but this is, like I said, the only time that you can interact with the agent. So any other questions for staff or the agent? Okay, so we go to members of the public. You stick around, Mac, just for this section, and then after that, when it's moved and seconded, you'll have to leave.
So I can write this out for the clerk also, so that'll help in the details. So I have 3 points. I guess overall, I'm in favor of this. I want to see the room that they have utilized. It's maybe a little bit away from the public view that they want to do. So the dormer, I'm okay with. Just some details on the dormer that aren't apparent in the drawings. So the height of the dormer isn't shown, so it looks to be a little bit taller than the one that's already approved for the west, just looking at the illustration. And I'm wondering also what is going to be the height of the new attic room. That's not shown on the drawings either. Just looking at, this is page 72. You have the length and width of that room, or that unit now shown, so that's good. Excellent drawings as well. But I think that's important because you're going into a space that's not currently used for habitation. I'd like to see that added. And my major point is with the deck, and that hasn't really attracted discussion so far. I'm just looking at the design of it. So on page 71, so we see that it's added onto an angled roof, and that we have points of fastening. There are 4 triangular fasteners on, I guess it would be the south end, and on the lower side of the roof. And then you have it 4, sort of post-type fastenings, look like they're parallel in that direction at the peak of the roof. So my concern is due to the stability of that design. I'm seeing that as problematic because if you're putting in a deck, you're going to be holding parties and so on up there and that kind of thing. And I don't know, maybe you have 10 people up there or 15 people or whatever. That's a fairly significant mass that you're adding there. And I'd be concerned over safety aspects of the deck sliding off or becoming unstable there. So speaking as a non-professional in the area, I'm not qualified or experienced in this, but just sort of looking at it, I prefer to see an actual constant fastening in all directions of the deck to the roof below that's supporting it. In other words, like you've got it like this, right? Okay, it's like that. And then you have it fastened here in 4 spots and fastened here in 4 spots. Fasten it across the entire section of the roof, not just at those points. So that's my preference. If you do that, then I'd support it. Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, the applicant or staff have a chance to respond to the member of the public.
Well, to the last comment about the structure of it, that really has nothing to do with the Heritage Committee. That's really a building code issue. We've had our building inspector's been there, is quite happy with how we're connected. I don't really has anything to do with this committee whatsoever. And the question about the inside height of the ceiling, I don't see where that's relative either. I mean, I'm happy to give that, but I'm just trying to do what's really part of what this Heritage Committee's mandate is. The inside ceiling at the flattest part will be about 9 feet. The dormer height is 8 feet, and the walls slope down to that 52 inches, but that's really not relative either. And what was the third point? Was there a third point that?
Yes, but if the height of the dormer was the same height, the dormer height
the
was
dormer
the same.
peak height? I think that's, I'm quite certain that's just the illusion of that perspective drawing. If you look at the drawing on page 73, you're just looking at the peaks of those are virtually the same. I just need to check that for a second, make sure it's the same width. I mean, it's approximately the same width, so it's going to be virtually the same height in the peak. It might be off by a little bit. So.
Okay, thank you. So if you don't mind leaving the chamber, we'll have our deliberations. We need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Don. So, as I've said before, so this is where we decide what slot to put it in when it goes to council. Does it go in the we support the approval slot, or does it go in the we do not support the approval slot? And there have been communications on both sides of this issue, so this is relevant. This discussion is relevant to that. At the end of the day, the 5 of us will decide by majority which slot we're putting this application in. So, who would like to go first? Councillor Schell.
Thank you. I approved the plan earlier. As I say, the dormer isn't going to be seen easily. The deck expansion is quite small. They're doing a lot of work on this house to make it quite a gem. So I don't see that either of the requests interfere with the heritage attributes of the house. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schell. Who else would like to speak? Sherman?
Thank you. One thing to staff and to the whole process, I feel it would be easier for us to understand the impact of this work if it to the surroundings, if the surroundings were illustrated. In other words, this is half of a duplex house, the other half is not illustrated. It's discussed that possibly there is a roof deck adjacent to the proposed roof deck. The privacy screen going up on the north side of this roof deck is the south side of the other roof deck. It will be blocking sun to the other side. It will be blocking if there is. So what I'm suggesting is how can we possibly take into consideration the overall effect if we don't really see the full building? So should full building be represented in the drawings if it is a duplex? And also should dimensions be on these drawings, because we can't tell how wide those dormers are, how high they are, how wide the spaces are, what proportions they are, other than a visual reconciliation or visual interpretation from what we see. So again, to the detail of the drawing, I'd recommend that they be more accurate. They show dimensions. They show us that what is the height of the ridge, what is the width of the dormer, etc. And I'd also question that this, in a photograph which is on H6, page 74, there is a photograph, photo number 1, which shows that interior side from the street, and I can see the top of 2 chimneys, it appears. Between the plan illustrates that the dormer will actually be installed in front of the front edge of those 2 chimneys. So as much as it is that I can see those chimneys, the dormer will be sitting proud of or in front of the front edge, so very visible from the street on that roof. For that reason, I do not support this.
Okay, so there were a couple of suggestions there that would be considered final comments for the file. Suggestion of better dimensions, including the dimensions of the work, and suggestion that having photograph of the other side of the duplex for context. Those should be added to the file as per the process for final comments. And then you also spoke to your how you intend to vote on the matter. Anyone else? Yes, Don.
I'm comfortable supporting the recommendation. I mean, you know, we really would prefer not to see large dormers added to this building, but in a way, it's a price that one has to pay for the renovation that this property badly needs. It has run down quite seriously over the years, and something on this scale is just not going to happen unless it can bring new space into the equation. And I think they're doing it in quite a responsible way. And this is the kind of intensification that is, I think, acceptable. This is very close to downtown. We're adding a little bit to the top story. We're not adding 3 more stories or 4 more stories. I think this is a kind of compromise that we have to accept.
Thank you, Don. Do you mind taking the chair so I can make a comment?
Yes, I recognize you.
So, mostly I agree with what Don has just said. the way that I'm making my decision on this has to do a lot with the context that it's in. There is a real possibility this close to the downtown that that there are development pressures that would have a building such as this come forward with a request to demolish. That is one possibility, a real possibility with a building like this. There's also, as Don mentioned, someone could come forward with a proposal to do an addition, which I would actually think is even worse than demolishing. Just to host at a town hall to do with people complaining about the proliferation of poor quality additions to large houses in Sydenham Ward. And that's not what's being proposed here. It's one large dormer in an attempt to make the third story a habitable space. This does accomplish a slight intensification, but more importantly, it accomplishes a successful continuation of this building under some significant sort of financial duress because of the amount of money that's needed to do these renovations. And the reason probably it was left so long and was in such poor repair when these owners got a hold of it was because of the scope of the work that would be required. The people with means to do that kind of work need to be encouraged. And if they want to make a habitable space and have a deck, and that's how they justify the expense, then I think we need to support that with the overall goal of having these buildings reused and kept up by owners that care about them. And I'm satisfied they've hired a contractor who knows what he's doing and has tried to balance all these factors. So I think under the circumstances, although we need to be firm about enforcing the district rules, the changes here in the lens of the streetscape of the old Sydenham Ward HCD is minimal. The dormer is only very slightly visible from the street, and the deck is not at all visible from the street. And that's the only thing that they're proposing to do. So, yes, with the nod that we can't be overly permissive, I am willing to support that council approves this, and I'm hoping that this new process is able to capture all the nuances of this file that will help us make other decisions on similar matters in the future. Thank you.
I return the chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the recommendation? Yes, Sherman.
Just to add, from a design point of view, the size of dormer and location of dormer, I believe, is flexible, given the look at the floor plan and the amount of space in that 4-piece bathroom, that the front wall of the dormer could be set back. Yes, a window might be shorter at that point, and it could be narrower. That wouldn't encroach on the installation of the ability to install a tub. So I'm thinking that there could be some flexibility in the reduction of the dormer to make it less visible on this side. So that's why I'm saying it's pushing a little too far, and flexibility could be seen where it's possible, or flexibility could be offered, but it doesn't appear to be taken.
Let the record show that Sherman has added a suggestion that the dormer location would have made a difference to the to his assessment of the work. Okay, so you've taken that note. Are there anyone else want any final comments included before we vote? Okay, so what we're voting on again, it's the that Heritage Kingston supports council's approval of the following: the 3 bullets that describe the work and the 3 conditions on the work, and the final report to council comes from staff, and they will include not only what's already in this package, but what we've added today. So all those in favor and opposed? And that carries 4-1. Mac, you can come back. Okay, so now we're on item 7E, working group reports, starting on page 88 in the package. First, we have the Heritage Properties Working Group briefing notes, page 88 and 89. This needs a mover and a seconder to get them on the record. Moved by Sherman, seconded by Councillor Schell. So you'll see here the matters that were discussed this month and the next meeting, which is next week. Is there any comment or questions about what's in the report? Yes, Councillor Schell.
On the property working group, great to see that there's another list of properties. And on the cultural heritage working group, I would like to strongly support the notion that the Cabins by Jennifer McKendry was a success. Yes, I couldn't get a ticket. I strongly support moving these to, say, Memorial Hall so more people can come. Absolutely. There's great interest.
Technically, that was you're getting ahead to the next item, but that's fine. You're addressing both the heritage, all the heritage notes at once. We need to approve the addition of the briefing notes to the minutes. So all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So now we're on the Cultural Heritage Working Group, which is page 90 to 95. And you'll see here it's quite a large working group and has been active. You see, yeah, it's the next one. Yep. Okay. So you'll see the work that they've done here, and we've heard Councillor Schell's comment. Any other comment or question? Yes, Sherman.
Yes, just a question about on page 92, City of Kingston Heritage Fund, comment that the Heritage Fund is greatly, the request for the fund, the requirement of the fund, access to the fund is more than the size of the fund, and wondered, is this the same fund that our, when we grant approvals, heritage grant approvals, does that come from this fund?
Ryan, is this the 24,000 Heritage Grant Approval Fund or something else?
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding, and I might defer to Jennifer or Greg on this one, but the grant program is funded out of a different program. This referred to in here is a separate initiative. It's overseen by Culture, I believe. So I'll defer to my colleagues in Culture on that.
If you want to come to a microphone, you could give us some context here so we could know which pool of funding we're talking about.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Campbell, the manager of Cultural Heritage. This funding is actually earmarked for projects that support museums. It's an operating fund to support local museums through largely the Kingston Association of Museums. And then parts of it are also for special projects. So it's a completely separate fund from what was discussed from Ryan and the planning team.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions or concerns? Like I said, we need to a mover and seconder to get the briefing note, the meeting notes read into the record. Moved by Megan, seconded by Sherman. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then the third group is Heritage Assets Working Group. So also now a large group, and you'll see on page 96 the composition and the time of the meeting, and then you've got actually they have some action items. So there is 4 recommendations or 4 action items. Yeah, HAWG is the acronym. So you'll see at the bottom of page 98, recommendation, it says HOG recommendation 1, 2, 3, and
the 4th recommendation is the proposed new member to the working group, which is in the 2nd paragraph on the 1st page on page 98.
the new member, right. So you've got the new member of the working group in the middle of page 98, you've got the recommendation 1, 2, and 3 on the 3 different aspects of the heritage assets. So 6 boxes of artifacts, 2 glass bottles, and some heritage furniture from the library. So we are the parent of this working group. So to make these recommendations happen, we need to vote on them. So first of all, on the adding a member, Barb Neatby, to the working group, we need a mover and a seconder to make that happen. Oh, we've got the city curator here who's going to give us some context. Come forward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not much to say about the new member proposal. Barb Neatby is a longtime staff member at the Royal Ontario Museum, so I think and a new resident in Kingston. It would be a worthwhile addition to our group. The other recommendations are sort of the core business of what the Heritage Assets Working Group does. These are additions to the civic collection, so the city's collection of heritage artifacts and works of art. The 3 are separated out, as you can see here, because there's a slightly different nature in their acquisition. The first one relating to the archaeological pieces from Market Square. Those are actually a transfer from the archaeologist Nick Gromoff, who was in part responsible for the dig in Market Square back in the early 2000s. These pieces have been in his care and under his stewardship, and he's now in a position to return them to the city now that we have actually adopted the rest of the collection that came from the former Cataraqui Archaeological Research Foundation, CARF. So that's a transfer of responsibility, shall we say, under Ontario law for archaeological collections. The 2 glass bottles are what I would call a traditional acquisition for the civic collection, objects offered by local donors. These particular pieces, in fact, belong or are related to a previous acquisition that we made about a year or so ago of these William Pipe Bottling Company bottles, a local merchant or a local bottling company here in Kingston in the 19th century. And the last one, the heritage furniture items. This one's a little bit different. Anyone who's ever worked in the special collections room at the library on Johnson Street will have used this furniture, will remember it. These pieces have been declared redundant with the new renovation ongoing at the library. And they were offered to the city for our use here at City Hall on a permanent basis. Turns out that when they were donated to the library years ago, they came with no particular provenance. They were just donations of appropriate 19th century furniture, stylistically speaking. So we are not recommending that they go into the civic collection as artifacts, but actually to be used here at City Hall as working pieces, decorative pieces, if you will. So that they are looked after in the same way we would with any other heritage asset. But if the time comes and they are worn out, we can get rid of them as we would with any other piece of office furniture. They don't have to go to council for deaccession.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the William Pipe Bottle Company. Would this have been a competitor to the Bottle and Glass that was featured in that play that we just had here in Kingston?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would imagine so. It could well have been.
I'm wondering if maybe if they do that play again, they might want to borrow, if it's possible to borrow an artifact or two for the use of as a prop in the play, as long as that would be safe.
It's an idea.
Is there any other questions to staff about these items? So we need to vote on separately? So we can vote on all 4 recommendations as one item. So there's the addition of the proposed new member, there's the 6 boxes of artifacts to receive them, to acquire them, the 2 glass bottles to acquire, and the heritage furniture items from the library to acquire. So we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Megan. Any discussion? Yes, Mac. So yeah, that doesn't have an action item, but it looks like it was discussed. Maybe Paul?
Yeah, yes, through you, Mr. Chair. That discussion is ongoing. We're waiting, we have a consultant in Ottawa who's looking at the collection and will be making a recommendation back to the group.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we'll vote on those 4 recommendations from the working group. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. So now, there are no motions or notice of motion. Under other business, remember we added to the agenda the item of the outer station for under other business. There's also some correspondence in the package on that subject. There's no action item on this, so comments are welcome, but we might want to get some context from staff but where we are on this file before we sort of make our comments, I guess. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I guess there really technically isn't a file on this particular property at the moment, as I think members of the committee are perhaps aware the property is owned by the federal government, and there was, I think, notice of intent to dispose of the property provided a month or so ago, perhaps not that long, and so that generated some concern about what would happen if the site is sold into private ownership, what would happen with the former outer station. So at this time, the property is still retained by the federal government, and Ryan has tried to reach out to Parks Canada, who helps to administer their heritage-related matters on behalf of the federal government, and things have gone kind of quiet. So quite frankly, I think at this point, if it's the desire of the working group to recommend preparation of a designating bylaw that in the event that it's sold to the private sector or a non-public sector body, we might be in a position to advance designation of the site. But at this point, that's really all I know.
Thank you. So yeah, so the implication of the federal ownership is the Ontario Heritage Act does not have any jurisdiction over federal properties, so it can't be, and nothing can be done while it's federally owned. But if it goes to private hands, yes, something can be done, and that's where we would step in. And as suggested by Greg, it would start with a discussion at the working group, that the Heritage Properties Working Group, which is where the discussions on possible designations happen, and then before it comes to committee. So with that in mind, Don, you probably want to speak to this item.
Well, very briefly, I guess the reason for the sort of current queries is that there has been a proposal from Dornekamp company to relocate the station, and there's concern by the residents as to where it might end up. So I really just wanted to know whether staff could say whether this proposal, the Dornekamp proposal, is serious, and are they do they have a definite location in mind, or I guess.
Yeah, without getting into too much conjecture, I mean, we've heard from staff already on this file, but maybe you could try to answer the question, but with the information that we have that's publicly available.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess there is a lot of speculation, so I'll share with you what I understand to be part of that speculation and just premise that with the fact that it is just that. But there have been discussions, of course. Mr. Dornekamp is interested in acquiring the former outer station and potentially relocating it to a property under his ownership. I've heard discussion of potentially having it located on Cataraqui Street. If, let's say, again, hypothetically, the property is retained by the federal government and we don't have an opportunity to be a part of the conversation before something happens, one thing I will say is that if the structure is intended to be relocated on a property that perhaps does have a heritage designation status, which many on Cataraqui Street do, this committee would have an opportunity to look at a potential alteration to that property through a Part 4 process. The only other thing I'd want to add is So North Kingstown, the area that the city is undertaking a study within right now, this is an item that has come up through the public consultation efforts of city staff. And certainly we are trying to be in control of the conversation there, but I would say for this committee and for the working group as well, that's probably a good opportunity to have a discussion about heritage assets in the area and what do we want to do and how do we want to be prepared for conversations that affect those assets. But really, like I say, that's all I know at this point.
So just to highlight what one point there, so not only the discussion on the outer station at the Heritage Property Group, but also the North Kingstown visioning process, which is ongoing, which would other heritage assets in that area should probably be discussed as well. I know members of the public are asking questions about process, and I'm wondering if you can help illuminate some of those for the members of the public. Should this speculation be true and there's an attempt to move the station under private ownership, whether or not to a Part 4 property or not, would a Part 4 designation newly created by us that could only be enacted once it's in private hands, if that was done, what would happen to that designation should a structure be removed from that property? What would that mean to the heritage process on the designation? If it was, say, theoretically, not only is it proposed to be moved privately, but also it is designated now under Part 4 because that's what we decided to do, theoretically.
I'll see if I understand the progression of events there. So let's say the outer station remains in federal ownership and the building is moved prior to the lands being acquired by a private interest. So the municipal opportunity to pass a Part 4 designation on the outer station would not have existed prior to the relocation of that structure. So unfortunately, that would be a challenge. There would be a subsequent question of the committee once if and when the building is relocated as to whether or not there's still merit in trying to establish a designation of the former outer station site for other reasons. And not being very privy to all the history on the site, I still think it would be worthy of discussion. So that's one thing, is there's potentially a missed opportunity there because we don't have the ability legally to put a Part 4 designation on a federally owned property. If it's relocated to a site that has that designation, then we have a kick at the can, so to speak. The only other thing I just would add in terms of process and the ability of the public to be involved in this conversation is if the building is relocated and the relocation requires some form of Planning Act approval. So the relocation of the building would likely require, if it wasn't intended for residential purposes, it would likely require site plan control approval under the Planning Act. And that's something that would be reviewed through the planning committee, and there's an opportunity there for a public conversation to be had about how the building's treated and where it's located. Through planning, through site plan control, you can talk to building materials and landscaping. We don't have a lot of control through the Planning Act for matters outside of those things when it comes to site plan control itself, but there might also be a zoning component. So that would be another opportunity for comment.
So thank you for pointing out from the perspective of a member of the public the different opportunities to give input on the file, not just at Heritage, but in these other planning and site plan as well. The thing that I heard, the significant from what you just said, is that should we vote to prepare a designation bylaw for the eventuality that the outer station property goes into private hands, it wouldn't have any effect on the building if it's already been moved under an agreement between the federal government and the person that acquires the building to move it. In other words, the federal government could sell the outer station to a private owner who would move it somewhere else, and our designation wouldn't be able to prevent that because that's a deal between a private citizen and the federal government. That part may not be fully understood by the public at this point, but that's the existing law, the fact that it's under federal ownership. There's nothing we can do to prevent that. However, we can control the work that comes as a result as soon as it shows up on land in Kingston, whether it's designated land, then it would come to heritage. If not, it would go to planning, and there'd be a site plan control as well. So from members of the public, those are the avenues. I think for us here today, we need to have a discussion at the working group and about the various scenarios. Keep in mind that we don't know the way it's going to go, but in case we need to be prepared. Did anyone else have something to say about this? Sherman.
Just on that, with respect to the site, that there is cultural or there is significance to the site detached from the significance of the building, and obviously protection can be, I believe, working group can discuss and to see that there are heritage, there's value to the site with and or without the building on site, and that should this committee encourage that be a topic of discussion in the next agenda of this working group to expedite discussion and possible actions that we may be able to take.
Yes, and actually it just occurred to me that it might actually be subject to conversation in another working group because the railway is an element of cultural heritage as well. So with or without the built heritage, right? So anyway, that's, I guess staff is telling us it's going to come to the working group for discussion, and then they can brainstorm over the possibilities of ways that we can, how we can intervene to protect heritage as best we can. So thank you. So that's other business. Correspondence, you'll see the correspondence, and it's listed here, several items, some having to do with some of the items that we discussed today. I'd just like to point out number D, which was an article that was in the Heritage article by a member of the public, Helen Finley. It's on page 119. It's just one page about the legacy of Francis Thompson. I would say that everyone on the committee should read that one page. It's very interesting and gives a lot of context for what we just discussed. And was there anything on here? No. So that's it. So now we've got the date and time of next meeting. So yes, Sherman.
I just wanted to ask a question about one of the correspondence items, the Ontario Heritage, about the Ontario Heritage Conference in June 8th to 10th on 2017 in Ottawa. Does this, does the committee take part in? Would it be logical to recommend that we attend or add some contribution to this conference? I know it's maybe early days, but it's a significant event, and should we actually seek to take part in it in some way or add a contribution in some way?
Would anyone else on the committee wish to, that's been to an Ontario Heritage Conference, wish to answer that question?
I think for the most part it's been up to individuals to choose to go. Certainly I think everybody thinks it'd be a good thing, but I don't think the city has advocated and financed members to go to these heritage meetings, except when it was here in Kingston.
I was going to say that's the only one I've ever attended was when we hosted. That was 2012, was it? 2012? Yeah. So that was a great event. I remember, and it highlighted a lot of our heritage, having all those people here. But this one's in Ottawa, so it's really up to individual members if they want to go. It's always going to be, it's learning experience and a chance to network and all that stuff. So just to confirm, does anyone here have an objection to the time and the first Wednesday morning of the month We've got 5 members missing today. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but this would be the first meeting of the new term. Would be the time to discuss if anyone thinks that there's a better time to meet. If not, we will meet at the same time next month. Mac?
I would like to discuss it, but I think probably should have more members here to do that. So why don't we just stay with where we are? I'm away in that first week of January anyway, so I'll give you my regrets right now.
Okay, so that's a good suggestion. So maybe when we have more members here, we can see if anyone has a proposal. We do have one member who has written to us that she can't come to the next 4 meetings because of teaching commitments, Queens. That's Jamie. So, and there's a committee bylaw rule about missing 3 consecutive meetings. So at some point we'll have to think about that too. So maybe we can revisit that next month. So that's it. The next meeting is January 4th. Is it really January 4th? So that's that's week of holidays if you have kids in school. It's right after New Year's. It's the part of the 2-week holiday break. So Wednesday morning, hopefully we'll have quorum. All right, motion to adjourn. All those in favor, thank you.